Vietnam and Watergate, Martin Scorsese captured a country coming apart through Travis Bickle.
You talking to me? You talking to me?
I'm Jared Bowen. For our next Wednesday watch party, we're revisiting Taxi Driver, the film that turned one man's isolation into a haunting portrait of America. Ride along with us and call in to share how this classic film resonates 50 years later. That's on The Culture Show next Wednesday at 2 on GBH 89.7.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on BPR and GBH and NEPM. $6.9 million. That's how much the Pentagon spent on lobster tails in 1 month, according to a new government watchdog report. $11 billion total so far in the war in Iran. Meanwhile, millions of people have lost health insurance after subsidies skyrocketed. Are you as sickened by this as we are? And if you are, what are you doing about it? Then it's the Mass League of Community Health Centers, Michael Curry, and former Massachusetts Public Safety Secretary Andrea Cabral.
I'm Marjorie Egan. The Academy Awards are this weekend, and we'll talk to film critic from the Globe, Odie Henderson, about which films he thinks should go home with the Oscar. Then we'll bring you the latest on the abrupt and unexpected dismissal of Boston Symphony Orchestra conductor Andres Nelson's. Then we'll open the phone and the text lines for you to weigh in on our Thursday special, Who's the Bigger A-Hole? The messy dishwasher loader or the loader control freak? Weigh in next on Boston Public Radio.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Iranian state media have released the first public statement that they say is by new supreme leader Mujtaba Khamenei since he succeeded his father, the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The elder Khamenei was killed in an Israeli airstrike on the first day of the war. The statement from the younger Khamenei was written and came with a still photograph of him. He's been reported to be injured. NPR's Jackie Northam says Khamenei was defiant.
Khamenei said Iran would carry on fighting, and he praised Iran's military as well as thanking Hezbollah in Lebanon and other proxies. Khamenei also said Iran would continue to block the Strait of Hormuz. He said that strategy was a successful lever in the war. And, there are hundreds of tankers idled in the strait, which is causing oil prices to skyrocket.
NPR's Jackie Northam reporting. A preliminary assessment by the Pentagon has determined the U.S. is at fault for a missile strike on a school in Iran on the first day of the war. That's according to a U.S. official who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly. NPR's Kat Lonsdorf reports the U.S. has launched a formal investigation.
The strike killed at least 165 civilians, many of them children, according to Iranian officials. The formal investigation is expected to take months. If the U.S. role is confirmed, the strike would be the most devastating U.S. military mistake in decades. In a statement, the White House reiterated to NPR that the investigation is ongoing and, quote, the United States does not target civilians. The strike comes after Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth dramatically cut the office at the Pentagon in charge of civilian harm mitigation last year. NPR reported earlier that the strike on the school was part of a larger precision strike and was likely the result of outdated intelligence. Kat Lonsdorf, NPR News, Washington.
Long security lines at U.S. airports are continuing to frustrate travelers. The Department of Homeland Security remains partially shut down, and there are shortages among Transportation Security Administration staffers. NPR's Windsor Johnston has more.
Travel analysts say uncertainty is creating headaches for passengers at airports. That can mean long waits at security checkpoints and even travelers missing flights. Airline industry analyst Henry Hartfelt says the travel system was already under pressure from several factors at once.
Between higher jet fuel prices and thus higher fares, airlines having to scramble potentially to rearrange flight schedules, and the problems stemming from DHS. The airline industry right now is like a brittle piece of glass. It could fracture at any moment.
He says when passengers miss flights because of long security lines, airlines are scrambling to find seats on planes that are often already nearly full. Windsor Johnston, NPR News.
On Wall Street, all the major indices are down more than 1%. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The last shipment of turbine blades for Vineyard Wind left New Bedford Tuesday en route to the nearly completed project. The $4.5 billion wind farm is expected to be fully operational by the end of this month. New Bedford Mayor John Mitchell tells the Standard Times the shipment from the city's Marine Commerce Terminal represents a closing argument for a case that his administration has been making for years, and that's New Bedford is well suited to be center of the offshore wind industry and that it can work alongside the local fishing fleet. The project was originally expected to be completed 2 years ago, but has faced major roadblocks, including legal challenges from the Trump administration, as well as that fractured turbine blade. Worcester will be a sea of green flags, marching bands, and decorated floats this coming Sunday for the city's annual St. Patrick's Day Parade. The parade steps off at noon on Park Avenue. The Worcester Guardian reports the event typically draws thousands of spectators along the roughly 2.5-mile route. Worcester has deep roots for the Irish culture, in addition to the broader mix of cultures that make up Worcester today. First held in 1981, the Worcester St. Patrick's Day Parade has grown into one of the city's largest early-season community gatherings. In sports, the Bruins host the Sharks at the Garden tonight. Celtics continue their road trip. They play the Thunder in Oklahoma City tonight. Exhibition baseball, it's the Red Sox playing the Twins in Florida. 46 degrees in Boston right now, 40 in Springfield. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Lilly Endowment, a private foundation supporting NPR's coverage of religion and spirituality, and Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts.
Houston Browdy, I am Marty Regan. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. You're going to be at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. The Attorney General of the Commonwealth will be joining us on March 25th, the Governor on March 27th, both of them 11 o'clock at the library. Hello again, Jim.
Hey, Marjorie's home, and I am at the studio, just so you know. By the way, do you mind on the air if I give you a little advice? If you don't want me to, I won't.
Certainly.
Is that okay?
What?
I would start practicing if I were you. When you say streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, I would suggest you start practicing. So you're ready, so you can say streaming at youtube.com/BUGBH News. Because if you read the Globe today, our boss, Susan Goldberg, says about a merger with BUR, it's perfect timing. It would make a lot of sense to merge. And in fairness, she did give hints in staff meetings and on the air with us. Here she is. This is Susan Goldberg. July of last year, we asked our boss about a potential merger of GBH and BUR. Here's the discussion.
You know, I think a lot about what's happened in Indiana. So in Indiana, I believe there are 17 public media stations. And they also just lost their state funding in Indiana. It would make a lot of sense for there to be a new way to think about how do you manage this? Does everybody need an HR department and a finance department? Can there be cooperation to keep the service on the front end?
You didn't answer the question.
I know I didn't.
So does that mean something's going on you don't want us to know about?
Jim, you will be the first to know.
I don't think so, but okay. So, I mean, we've talked to her a few times about this, and I'm not surprised. Are you surprised or no?
See my logo?
Oh, it says GBH. You got to change that, too.
I had to change the logo. Just as long as the Eton Crank radio survives, that's my major concern.
In any case, we'll update you, and as soon as we have an opportunity, we'll have Susan on the show, and she can talk to us a little bit more. So we start the show with a new report from a government watchdog group showing the Pentagon. I hope you should write this down. Showing the Pentagon spent, this is in 1 month, by the way, millions of dollars on ribeye steak, crab legs, and lobster and other discretionary items. And obviously something like $11 billion in the war already. And at the same time, Jim, of course, we don't have any money available to subsidize health care for people on Obamacare. What?
Lobster tails.
Lobster tails, that's right. We'll get into that detail in a minute. Here's Trump, by the way, on another note. He's responding to a CNN White House correspondent, Kristen Holmes. She's asking about the Iran school bombing. And as you know, there were more than 160 schoolgirls killed. A preliminary report from the Pentagon despite what Trump is saying that Iran did it, suggests that the United States is responsible for this. Here's Kristen Holmes' question and Trump's incredible response.
As Commander-in-Chief, do you take responsibility for that?
That is what?
As Commander-in-Chief, do you...
For what?
For the strike on the school in Iran. A new report says the military investigation has found it was the United States that struck the school.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that. He says, arguably the biggest story in the world. I don't know about that. So the lines are open this morning to ask why we keep allowing our leaders to do this. We plan for protests like No Kings on March 28th, which do have an impact for sure, at least in awareness. It's a great thing that they're doing it. But are we doing enough? Some suggest we take a page from the book of labor movements across the world, all walk off our jobs in a general strike, shutting down the economy, or something real. Are we part of the problem? As citizens and residents of this country, every single day we let these people do horrible things in our name, not just in war, but impoverishing our people, while, as Marjorie is obsessed with, they're eating millions of dollars in lobster tails at the Department of War. Is it time we start talking about our complicity in all this? What do we do? 877-301-8970. Okay, get it out of your system. What did they spend money on?
Well, it was also $100,000 for a Steinway grand piano for one of the big honchos in the Air Force for his home. And then I think it was $264,000 on fruit basket stands.
$2 million on king crab, $6.9 million on lobster tail, $15.1 million on ribeye in one month at the Pentagon.
In fairness, this is the end of the fiscal year, so I think that historically people spend a lot of money.
In fairness.
But may I ask you?
No, you cannot continue.
Okay.
If you don't spend, if it's a use it or lose it, you know what you do? You lose it, and it goes back to the Treasury so you can subsidize healthcare premiums instead of buying steaks for Mr. Hegseth and his team. That's what you do with it.
Well, to get back to Mr. Hegseth and his team, he's been talking about, the lethality of our military, and these old processes are too cumbersome, and we look like, we've been too weak and woke in the past, and whether we should, rules of engagement changes, and you wonder how much of this rush from him had to do with this mistake, this tragic mistake with the school.
Did you hear were you listening to NPR News? I don't know if you were. I didn't know this till I just heard the news 5 minutes ago.
Yep.
He recently, Hegseth, cut the Civilian Harm Mitigation Office in the Pentagon. By the way, let's add to this for whatever it's worth. Yesterday morning, the Secretary of Energy tells world leaders like him, energy leaders around the world, don't release your reserves. You know what he does 2 hours later? Calls them back and says release them, because in the morning Trump was against the release. 2 hours later, he probably watched Fox News or something, he said release it. These people have no idea what they're doing except satisfying the macho, narcissistic needs of a clueless defense secretary and a senile, mentally ill, sadistic president, and we do nothing.
Don't forget that same Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, also had this social media post saying a U.S. Navy vessel had escorted an oil tanker through the Strait of Hormuz, and the oil prices plunged and causing oil prices to plunge.
One problem.
And then it turned out it didn't happen. The military isn't escorting them. He's the one that said we shouldn't. He also said earlier that oil was not going to be an issue in this whole situation. One other thing I want to mention, and this may seem like a small thing, but it's is that apparently the president has run around and bought all these shoes for members of his cabinet, these Florsheim shoes that he likes. And he insists that they all wear the shoes. And he went around the office asking people what shoe size or guessing what shoe size they had, sometimes asking. Mm-hmm. And when their shoe size wasn't big enough, then he ridiculed that, because that meant that if they didn't have big enough feet, they didn't have big enough something else. And then they're all wearing them every day, apparently, these Florsheim shoes, whether they like them or not.
See the picture of Rubio wearing the shoes? They're like 3 sizes too big.
Exactly. And so Marco Rubio is...
Too scared not to wear them.
Well, or exchange to get a pair that fits instead of looking like he's swimming in his shoes. I mean, what does that say?
Okay, speaking of what does it say, did you hear Trump's speech yesterday afternoon in Kentucky? Within 30 seconds, he goes from "we won" to "here's what we got to do before we leave." Well, I thought we won. Here's a little bit of Trump yesterday in this incredible speech in Kentucky.
And we've won. Let me say, we've won. You know, you never like to say too early you won. We won. We won the bet. In the first hour, it was over. They'll all be gone. By the time I'm finished speaking, they'll be gone. We got to finish the job, right?
We won, and we got to finish the job. I mean, this is, again, I want to be clear here because I don't want criticism on this count.
Yep.
I think March 28th is fabulous. The No Kings, you know when the last No Kings thing was? 5 months ago.
Right.
You know what he's done in 5 months to this country and our relationship to the world?
You know what is going to be really telling as well when they own up to this tragic hitting of this school.
Do you hear what NPR? Do you hear what NPR said the likely time frame for the report is? Many months, just said.
Well, I think we know what happened. I mean, the New York Times had it days and days ago, complete with the pictures and the knowledge that unlike the president who lied and said, or maybe he just didn't know that all these other countries, including Iran, have Tomahawk missiles. They don't. That was a lie too, and it was a Tomahawk missile. You could see it from the pictures. But you know, the New York Times is pointing out this morning that in Afghanistan, when we hit civilians, I mean, mistakes happen. We compensated them. We apologized for it. Do you think they couldn't apologize for Preddy out in Las Vegas or for Renee Good out in Las Vegas? Do you think they're going to apologize for more than 100 little children?
But you know what's another difference with Afghanistan? Let me repeat what I heard on NPR.
What?
The defense secretary, whoever it was at the time, had not cut the civilian harm mitigation office shortly before there was severe civilian harm. Our number is 877-301-8970. Again, I know we do this every few months, and you all get aggravated, particularly with me. We're doing a lot of things. We have 18 people in Newton. We have this. This country is going in the toilet. We are killing little kids and then lying about killing little kids. We are destroying our relationship with the rest of the decent world. We are impoverishing our neighbors, whether it's healthcare, groceries, whatever it is. And we are the most passive people ever. Jane in Concord, you're first. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, you've touched on so many topics in the last 10 minutes.
Pick one.
Amazing. Yeah, the naivete to think that you can go into an entrenched religious dictatorship and kill a couple of people and just say, okay, see you later, that's craziness. And Trump picked the least qualified people for his cabinet.
That is so true.
Like Kashyap Patel, I'm not going to call him Cash. He doesn't need a nickname. And these Doge cuts for a tax cut for billionaires and increasing the ICE budget by gazillions of dollars to chase teenagers and people who are minding their own business. The whole thing just doesn't make any sense.
Are you content with how we've responded? Are you content with how we have responded to this, Jane, as a people?
No, of course not. And I'm including myself.
I am too.
Yeah, just the craziness of lobster tails and ribeye steaks and supposedly a Steinway piano that costed $89,000. What is the piano for? Is Peter Hedgepecker or Pete Keg's Breath, as they're calling him now, Keg's Breath, which is great. Is he going to play songs for everyone to dance to? I mean,
Jane, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. Thank you much.
I read $100,000 Steinway, and it's supposedly for the home of some Air Force person.
Can I do
and by the way, what are fruit basket stands? I don't even know what those are.
It's what you said. They had an excess. They're going to lose the money.
Why did they need a stand?
Because they couldn't eat any more ribeye in 1 month is the answer. I want to repeat it. $15.1 million of ribeye
steaks,
$6.9 million in lobster tails, $2 million in king crab legs in 1 month at the so-called Department of War.
And don't forget $1 million in salmon.
I forgot that. I actually like it all. Rosie in Rhode Island, welcome to the show. Hi.
Good morning, Jim and Marjorie. How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Hey, so this is one of the things that's puzzling me, and I can't seem to find an answer anywhere. why is it that we supposedly were going to be like swimming in oil from Venezuela? Wouldn't that prevent our prices from going up, our gas and oil prices?
Did you ask Senator Marty that question yesterday? I can't remember.
I did, but the answer implied to me that we aren't getting the oil that we thought we were going to get from Venezuela. Supposedly there's some Texas refinery that's going to do something, but it's clear we're not getting it yet. And we're supposedly going to release some strategic reserves, but others have complained, well, strategic reserves are supposed to be for an emergency imposed on us as opposed to a war of choice that we've imposed on somebody else. So I don't know.
Well, we are releasing reserves. We are. We don't know the answer to the Venezuela
but people
thing.
Criticize that.
I
criticize that.
Okay.
We'll get to the bottom of it. Go ahead.
As far as the prime rib and the crab legs and so on, I think that, the folks who are allegedly serving in D.C. should also have to abide by the same rules that perhaps, the rest of us, or cutting back our grocery expenses, or the kids who get school lunches. Like, sorry, budget cut. Y'all are going to have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches instead. And
well, as you know, Rosie, the same rules don't apply to them as apply to us. Most of us in similar positions couldn't have our kids investing and making billions of dollars in entities that are government run by the father is making deals with. Rosie, thank you for the call.
And by the way, the reports about the excess spending by Pete Hegseth, supposedly these involved outside contractors, people that they might have been wining and dining. They certainly were not going to the rank and file soldiers, that's for sure.
By the way, Dan in Sudbury says, Jim, you talk and talk, but what is your solution? I said at the top, I would think it'd be totally appropriate if every person in this country walked off their job tomorrow. That's, I think, for starters.
Here's the question. Where is the labor movement on this?
Well, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing.
They would be the people that you might think, everybody's not in the union, obviously.
Well,
anymore.
but let's look back. We've all praised, as we should, the spontaneous uprising by thousands of people in bitter cold in Minneapolis because they didn't like seeing their neighbors killed. They weren't organized. They didn't have a date for a rally. They weren't comfortable. They didn't plan 2 months in advance.
Let's give credit to the people up in Burlington, Vermont, who are out in the streets about people. ISIS invaded their town of Burlington, and there were people out protesting that. I think it was yesterday.
So, again, maybe this is pipe dream stuff, but it happens in limited places in our country. It sure as hell happens in other parts of the world for sins far less than those committed by Trump, Hegseth, et al. And again, I am a big supporter of protests. I actually support peaceful protests regardless of what your point of view is. I think it's healthy for democracy as long as we have one. And March 28th is great. But again, 5 months between two great No Kings protests, I don't think is enough to stop this sickness.
Well, you've heard what people are saying about Iranian strategy, that they feel as though their people can take the pain longer than the Americans can take the pain.
Brendan, you're in Hopkinton. Welcome to the show. Hello.
Hey, sometimes you guys make me want to pull my beard hairs out, but I love you. You got me through the pandemic. The first time I called was during Are You the A-Hole, despite the fact that you have lots of other things. But I want to offer a really simple thing.
Please.
To add to your joint credibility on this topic, which is I will come over personally and help you unsubscribe from Amazon, and we can set up a GoFundMe to get you out of all the other stuff that you're doing. But because you don't like people, and I totally understand that, maybe we can do the GoFundMe, make it remote.
I like some people, Brendan. That part's incorrect. I like some people. Go ahead.
Okay. The other thing I want to say is that a lot of people have been following Scott Galloway.
Yeah.
And if you don't know him, he's got a really good campaign that you can find very easily.
Explain what Galloway's doing. He's been talking about it on CNN nonstop. Explain what he's doing, Brendan.
Yeah. So basically, he has found that the biggest leverage point, and this is a guy who's basically a self-made multimillionaire, right? But
teaches
he has
at
his
NYU
heart in
too.
the right place, and he is focused on unsubscribing and hitting people who are backing this regime in the pocketbook.
It's called
right?
Resist and Unsubscribe is his campaign. Yep.
Yeah, resist and unsubscribe. And you guys can do that. You can do it.
Brendan,
you'd be a lot more credible if you did.
Brendan, thank you. Thank you. We're glad to hear it. We appreciate it, and thanks for the credibility advice. Yeah, resist and unsubscribe. If you Google it, we've tried to get Galloway in the past. He is a really hard get, as they say. And he's basically saying, delete apps for major tech companies, Apple, Amazon, Meta, that sort of thing. Unsubscribe from these things because what they care about, just like Donald Trump cares about gas prices, they care about, obviously, their bottom lines. 877-301-8970. Patricia in Rhode Island. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
So I was just telling the person that I spoke with that I run my own business, small business, healthcare, and I strike, but
Good.
Hello?
Yeah, we lost you after you run your own business. You're back. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, a small healthcare business. So if I went on strike, I would be, hurting my patients. So I'm willing to take cash for a set amount of time, but there needs to be someone that's sort of at the top of this organizing it. Tell me what week I have to do that. So I don't know what to do.
No, I hear you. Leaders are really important. I think that's a very valid point, criticism, whatever you want. Patricia, thanks for the call. Anonymous text says, I'm sick of the U.S. apathy. Thinking of moving to Europe or Canada. I go to a weekly protest, participate in No Kings, other protests, call politicians, follow the news to the detriment of my mental health. Oh, this is Jim is my spirit animal. Thank you. Well, you're mine, too, I should
Here's
say.
another one.
What's that?
Wondering why Doge hasn't stopped Pete Hegseth from ordering all that steak and lobster.
We're making sort of light of that, but again, keep in mind, we're going to talk to Michael Curry in a few minutes about what the impact in the tens of thousands of people the Obamacare subsidy cuts are, at the same time that Hegseth and his boys, I'm sure, are eating lobster and ribeye at taxpayer expense. It's just unconscionable.
Well, he's just a horrible person. I mean, that's what's so weird about this. You may disagree with presidents and politicians, but you don't think that they're horrible, cruel, terrible people. And that's what Pete Hegseth is. I think we know that. RFK Jr., I think, has lost his marbles. I think the president is close to losing his marbles. I mean, Hegseth gets up there like he's in some testosterone haze, talking about moving fast, we're going to break things and all that stuff, and let's just forge ahead and no more rules of engagement. And the military, they have done very well, but they made a horrible mistake here, and somebody like Pete Hegseth should take responsibility for it.
I'm with you. I don't know if it's Mari, my apologies, in Marblehead. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I am very nervous, but I feel like I have to do this. One, you guys are definitely my heroes. I think you've provided such a service since the first Trump administration.
Thank you.
However, I get so mad when you minimize the effects of these local groups. The local groups are more than 12 people in Newton. There are 200 people in Beverly.
That's great.
They're meeting 2 times a week. They're organizing, for government, for changes in local government. They're doing things with immigration in terms of food, clothing, accompaniment. And they're the ones who are feeding into the larger ones.
Mary, can I tell you something? Mary, the problem is not the 200 people in Beverly. The problem are all the people in Beverly and surrounding towns that have decided that's not enough of a priority. I'm not criticizing them. I'm criticizing the do not attenders. And sadly, we're out of time, Mary. My apologies.
Yeah, I think it has to do with leaderlessness, too. You think of a lot of great revolutions before they had leaders, Lech Walesa and Nelson Mandela. Where's ours? We don't have one. Coming up after this quick break, Michael Curry, head of the Mass League of Community Health Centers. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, the medical drama The Pitt drops viewers into the chaos, mania, and moral gray zones of the emergency room. But how close does it come to the real thing? New Yorker writer and physician Dhruv Khullar has been thinking about exactly that and what the show reveals about modern medicine and the system behind it. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Revision Energy, a renewable energy company building and servicing solar, batteries, and air source heat pumps for local homes and businesses for over 20 years. Revision Energy. Revision your power. More at revisionenergy.com. And Safety Insurance, offering a variety of home insurance products to cover your home's increased value. You can ask an independent agent about safety insurance. Safety Insurance will help you manage life's storms.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Library tomorrow. Some great music ahead of St. Patrick's Day and some other fabulous guests, actually. Attorney General joins us for an hour at the library on Wednesday, March 25th. Governor joins us for an hour at the library on Friday, March 27th. Joined on Zoom by Michael Carey. Michael, of course, the CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers, on the board of the National NAACP. Michael, welcome.
Hey, glad to be back.
Good to see you.
Hey, Michael, thank you for joining us. So before we were talking about this horrible war, we were all talking about what was going to happen with Obamacare subsidies going down the drain. So where are we with those subsidies?
Well, we know that the OB3, as folks refer to the one big bill, prompted federal policy changes, and it was going to draw back on the subsidies under the Affordable Care Act. That's tens of thousands of Massachusetts residents no longer having access to health insurance, and the state reeling to try to figure out how to keep people covered. We are a 98% insured state. That is going to drop. And we will see our neighbors now scrambling to figure out how to stay on the coverage that they have under the connector, as we call it, or losing coverage because they can't afford it, or being kicked off coverage. So, this is a really difficult place to be. The connector has about 320,000 people that are enrolled in the connector, and that enrollment dropped, which is a sign of the times that we're in, 7% over the past 3 months. That should concern us all. We know that when people don't have coverage, they don't get care, and they show up in the most expensive parts of our healthcare system, and they show up sicker.
Just to add the tie numbers, that 7% Michael mentioned in a BUR story, in Massachusetts, more than 22,000 people have canceled their health insurance, more than double the normal rate. Another 35,000 were kicked off coverage for inability to pay their bills. I mean, these are staggering numbers. And once again, because of the brilliance and the speed of the attacks on the American people, frankly, by Trump, this is almost not talked about, the consequence. When you say sicker a minute ago, meaning many will go to an emergency room, but many won't even go to an emergency room until something that was minor becomes major, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I've said this to the two of you before, and I say it in speeches when I'm asked to present on these issues across the country and across the state. I say, 49 million people didn't have coverage before the Affordable Care Act. 49 million. That meant when your teeth were hurting, your eyes were declining, you had a mental health issue, you had a substance use disorder, or you had a pain in your side that could have been diagnosed as stage 1 cancer, you did not go get care because that drug, that treatment, that chemo, that office visit cost much more than you would have ever imagined. And when you found out how much it cost, you said, you know what, I won't get that care. I'll hope that it goes away. We shouldn't want that for any American, any human being. And unfortunately, this policy is driving us back to a time where people hide in their illness until it's too late. And it costs more, and it has dire consequences on lives.
So Mass Health, which already is the program that deals with people who are not making a lot of money, I've heard terrible stories about cuts there that people are feeling already. Even in dental care, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, the parts of our system, we know that it's a challenge in any healthcare system to balance the cost, the affordability of care. And we say affordability, we think affordability for the state, affordability for employers, affordability for individuals. And then we're trying to balance quality. And if you get quality of care to people, if you get access, making sure we don't have to close hospitals and health centers, or that people can travel to a health center. And then equity, that everyone has access to their optimal health and to good quality care. That is a balancing act that is hard for any country, any city, any state to balance. And unfortunately, our Medicaid program is under fire and under strain. We was already under strain. It's a good percentage of our state budget because we have a value system in Massachusetts that says we want people covered. We're playing the long game in Massachusetts, which is if we get you primary care, if we get you access to vaccinations and services now, then we don't pay that longer term cost. We're not punting it to the next administration, the next generation. We're trying to deal with it now by keeping people covered. But that comes at a cost, and a budget cost. It comes at a cost. And then now add on top that the federal administration is about to cut Medicaid funding to the tune of $1 trillion nationally, and to the tune, I think, $3.5 billion here in the Commonwealth. That means that we have to figure out how to do more with less, to operate leaner, at least for the next year to 2 to 4 years, while there's shifts in the federal administration, until maybe we return to a more sane Medicaid policy. But right now, Massachusetts and other states are trying to figure out how to respond to this cut in federal dollars. And it's not easy. Providers, health plans, health centers, nursing homes, you name it, will ultimately bear the brunt of all these cuts.
Yeah, one of the things I was unaware of that I have to say is both wonderful and horrible, at least in my estimation. I'm curious to get your take, Michael. There's a story in the Globe about a week ago about how cuts in the personal care attendant program, which provides tens, if not hundreds of thousands of seniors and people with disabilities, allows them to stay in their home, live independently. There are cuts that are going to be made, and rather than them being made top down, the people who run Mass Health decided to involve the people who are the beneficiaries, both the providers and the users of the system, and work with them to see, in light of the fact that cuts were unavoidable, obviously because of what the feds are doing, what will cause the least pain. And while it's horrible in some ways to say, I'm going to participate in the diminution in services to me and people like me, the fact that the state, unless I'm reading this wrong, actually did it in my opinion, the right way by including the people who know the most is a really important initiative. Am I reading this right or no?
You are, and it's broader than just the PCA program. I think the Healy administration, Mike Levine, who runs our Medicaid program here in the state, I think they've taken an interesting approach. I think it's probably arguably a model for the rest of the country, which is involve those closer to the pain, as Ayanna Pressley, Congresswoman Pressley would say. And it's not always just the patient, although I would argue patients. Advocates should be in the conversation as well, and in some cases they are. They're talking about the providers that have to provide this care being at the table with the state to figure out where the cuts are necessary. And in the case of the primary care attendant program, the PCA program, I give a personal story. My sister passed away last year. She had many different illnesses, lived alone, had a PCA who would come in and help her do the basic stuff. Now, I don't remember all that she did for her, but it could have been helping her with clean the apartment, go through her bills, pay her bills, and navigate the system. Those are critical services that people with the PCA program rely on. It keeps them out of the nursing home. It keeps them in community at home where it's cheaper. And the PCA program is critical to that. So what they did was they involved the PCA community in a conversation to say cuts are coming. Where can you accept the pain? And that's not just the PCA program. That is in other parts of the state. That could be the health safety net for those that are uncompensated. That could be Mike Levine and the administration, to their credit, are involving people in the conversation so that they can make some decisions together. The PCA program is critical. Now that means caps in the number of overtime hours each attendant can work, how long they can spend on meal prep. And then maybe down the line, there's other cuts coming, or at least other restraints coming in the program around house cleaning and food preparation and bill paying. Like this should concern us because we know it works. Yeah. But we sometimes have to deal with the immediate crisis to the detriment of the long-term savings.
Michael, one of the things it seems to me, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you say if people can't stay at home with their personal care assistant, they will wind up in a nursing home, which is very expensive. Or if people can't get primary health care or testing before they get really sick, they'll wind up at the emergency room. They'll wind up being hospitalized, where it costs a fortune. So I don't see where the savings is going to come in here.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the I think it's the 3-card money, they call it, right? It's the whole thing about in this dilemma we're in, we need immediate savings for the immediate crisis. The problem is sometimes the immediate savings do not help us in the long term. So I can cut dental, right, or cap dental. I can do some of the decisions like curtail access to services under the PCA program, or cut reimbursements to providers. And while in the immediate, it helps fill the gap in terms of the budget crisis, in the long term, it means less access, strains on our healthcare system. Providers will come back now with a deficit, seeking the bailout or a relief from the state government. It's the game we play, and sometimes, and I know it's difficult work. Governor Healy, Mike Levine, and our other regulators, along with those of us in the health provider space, we got to figure it out. But I worry, as me personally, that we don't have a long game. We just tend to respond to the crisis in front of us.
Talking to Michael Curry. Michael, let's go into your bailiwick and the dozens of critical community health centers that you oversee, with what you tell us, 1 million people who are served, which is just in Massachusetts, which is a staggering number. There's another story at BUR about the reaction, at least of some of your health centers, about what they say scrubbing language at odds with Trump administration priorities, renaming programs and positions relating to minimizing harms from drug use, changing or canceling some services. I know how you feel about these kinds of things. You don't run the individual places, but what's your reaction to this, and how are you interacting with leaders of the individual centers around these kinds of incredibly painful decisions?
Well, I'm always reminded, I was with my good friend Jim Brett at the New England Council, and he was honoring Boston Healthcare for Homeless and our leader at Boston Healthcare for Homeless. And I made a comment in that New England Council meeting. I said, when I came to work for the community health centers 18 years ago, Speaker Finneran actually told me, good, you're going to do God's work now. And I absolutely believe that's what I and we are doing, is God's work. And the reality is, if you are providing harm reduction to make sure that people aren't using infected needles, and you are doing a needle exchange, if you are preventing HIV/AIDS spreading, if you are providing care to the LGBT community, or specifically to those who are seeking gender-affirming care, if you're doing DEI to make sure that people with lived experience who speak your language are in our healthcare system, if you are providing people who come here from all over the globe to get care, you are doing God's work. Now, that's been recasted in this current environment, but my members are reeling, trying to figure out how do they maintain their funding, federal funding, if they trip the wire of some new federal policy that prevents them from doing all of that critical work I just talked about. We know it saves lives. We know it with harm reduction, it saves money. We know that ultimately it works, but now we are facing a federal tsunami that tells us that if we trip the wires, you get defunded. So they're concerned. There's some word shifting, some program adjustments that are being made. It deeply concerns me, but I understand our members have to do what's in the best interest of their entire organization.
Well, in addition to overseeing this 1 million-person serving organization that you do, you're also probably the principal, or one of a handful of most important people on this health equity compact, this health equity work that you've been totally committed to. How does that proceed in this environment?
Well, health equity under this administration is DEI.
Right.
So
exactly.
if I know that Black women are dying and suffering at higher rates in maternal poor maternal outcomes, then I want to divert resources to Black women to make sure that they're getting the care that they need, that they get timely care and culturally proficient, not competent, proficient care. If I know that Black men have higher rates of prostate cancer, I'm going to go after disease where it is, and I'm going to resource the patient and the providers to meet that need, that crisis. The unfortunate part is health equity makes sense. It always did. And it's not just about Black and brown. It's about rural. It's about men. It's about women. It's about people coming here from specific countries. And unfortunately, it's been casted as this reverse discrimination kind of thing. It's never been that. It's been sound science and medical care. And therefore, yes, I am concerned, Jim. But, again, we are on an island in Massachusetts that our values are pretty firm. We just got to make sure that this too shall pass one day, and that we're ready to get back to what we know saves lives and saves money.
We have less than a minute left, Michael, but very quickly, these GLP, these weight loss drugs have been so successful dealing with obesity. Now, they're not going to be covered for most people unless they're diabetic or have some other health issue. Is that the deal?
Yeah, well, GLP-1s, right? It's the rave, right? I've been thinking about whether I want to get them because I'm thinking about,
You're looking pretty good there, Michael, but go ahead.
Well, as you reach that age of 50-something, you become pre-diabetic. 1 in 3 people in this country are pre-diabetic. So if you don't want to trip the wire and become diabetic, then being able to drop 20, 30 pounds actually, puts you in a safe space. You don't have to take the statins. Maybe you get your blood pressure down. So we know that weight loss and the use of a GLP-1 can make you healthier so that you can not get sicker. And of course, we know the cost implications in our healthcare system when we do trip the wire and we become ill. That being said, GLP-1s, like many pharmaceuticals, cost a lot of money, and they're driving up the cost of healthcare, and health plans are deciding to limit access for weight loss.
Yeah, let's continue that discussion next time. It's important to a lot of people. Michael, good to see you. Be well. Stay strong.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
See you.
We've been speaking with Michael Curry, CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers, on the board of the National NAACP. Up next, we're going to talk with Andrea Cabral, the former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety, about people losing faith in the Supreme Court and people withholding their income taxes in a form of protest. He's Jim Browdy. I'm Marjorie Egan. You're listening to GBH we're listening to BPR on GBH. We'll be right back.
This weekend, the Boston Pops honors the longtime A Celtic Sojourn host Brian O'Donovan. Conducted by Emer Noon with special guests Aoife O'Donovan and Solace. Join us for Celtic Night, a tribute to Brian O'Donovan and A Celtic Sojourn. Sunday night at 7, here on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Explo, from international law to studio art. Explo's summer program helps middle schoolers to find their spark. Day and overnight options at explo.org/summer. General enrollment deadline, April 1st. And the Simmons Leadership Conference, a powerful day of inspiration, skill building, and connection. Tuesday, March 17th, in person in Boston and online. Learn more at inclusiveleadership.com.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NDPM. I'm Jim Browdy, and she is Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Library tomorrow. The Attorney General will be with us on the 25th at 11, and the Governor will be with us at the 27th at 11. We're now joined by Andrea Cabral on Zoom, former Massachusetts Public Safety Secretary, former Sheriff of Suffolk County, and a BPR contributor. Hey there, Andrea. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Excellent.
Hi, Andrea Cabral. So apparently the trustworthiness of the Supreme Court has taken a real dive. People don't have faith in it. It's worse than it's ever been. And it's been going down for some time. But I wonder, What does this mean in terms of if the Supreme Court makes a controversial decision and people have no faith in them? What does that mean?
Well, I'll start first with sort of what the numbers say. This is an NBC News poll, although there have been, I think, several polls recently that have been consistently measuring almost with each or shortly after each very significant decision or action on the part of SCOTUS, how people feel about SCOTUS. So NBC started their polling in 2000, so it's basically 25, 26 years old. And they just did a survey. It shows that only 22% of registered voters said they had either a great deal or quite a bit of confidence in the High Court. And it is very, very significant because historically, and even when large swaths of people didn't necessarily agree with the ultimate decision that the Supreme Court made, the nation as a whole had confidence in the institution. What these numbers say is that there is no longer confidence in the institution, and that's the real harm. So 40% said they had some confidence. I'm not sure what that means. I guess that means anything other than no confidence. And then 38% said they had very little or no confidence. And so, it's been very clear between the shadow docket, which not just, legal experts and others have commented on. Everyday lawyers notice it. Everyday people notice it. This SCOTUS with this GOP majority has been issuing shadow docket decisions, unsigned decisions, which means nobody's going to take accountability for it. But the decision invariably, almost always comes down on the side of President Trump. The reason people don't have confidence in the institution is because of the perception that they are doing the bidding of the president when they are, in fact, part of a separate and co-equal branch of government whose job it is to be a check on the other two.
So my major concern about this is I'm not surprised by any of it, and I accept and agree with your analysis. When a huge majority of the American people doesn't have faith in the highest and most important court in the country, when I'm assuming, maybe I shouldn't say huge majority, when a majority of the American people think the Attorney General and her Justice Department are corrupt and incompetent, what's the trickle? I mean, you were in the justice system forever, prosecutor, head of public safety. What's the trickle-down impact on how people behave? Do you understand my question? I mean, what does it do to the average person when they say, oh, the system is totally rigged, to use Trump's word? In this case, he would be right. Whether it's federal prosecutors, whether it's the Supreme Court itself, what does that mean in terms of how ordinary people behave? You do know what I mean. What's the impact?
There are sort of, the usual three ways to go, right? So the trickle-down effect is that, I think the vast majority of people see it in some way, even if it's just looking at who the DOJ goes after now, who ICE goes after, Trump pardoning his Confederates versus the way regular people are treated. There is some aspect of this that comes to the attention of or touches, everyday people on a daily basis. You can either, as a nation, decide that this is not what this country is supposed to be about. This is not what this democracy is supposed to be about, and undertake to reverse it by eliminating those people from government, voting them out, voting out the leaders who appoint them, right? You can have an apathetic and overwhelmed view, which is, this is just too much. I can't do this and pay for gas, right? I can't do this and pay for rent. I can't do this and pay back my student loans now that there's no longer a forgiveness program. And just tune it all out and let the chips fall where they may. Or you can become anesthetized to it and allow it to take hold and solidify and become the foundation for the way the government goes forward. Now, clearly the Trump administration is hoping that the latter happens, that people are so otherwise occupied who are distracted, that they can embed this in the fabric of everyday life. And they've gone a long way to doing that. So, I think it affects everyone. The issue is how people respond to the way it affects them, whether they think it's somebody else's problem to deal with and correct, whether they think it doesn't need correction at all or that it will even itself out, or they affirmatively undertake to do something to change it and to make all of this stop.
We're talking, and the problem is when you lose faith in virtually every institution in this country, it really, I don't even know what it does. Your analysis is good, but it's not good. Not your analysis, the consequence. What?
May I ask Andrea the question we asked talkers in the first segment? I'm interested in what she said about it when she talks about how we've embedded these things. We've kind of rolled over and taken these things. Jim was arguing that we're supine as a nation. We are going to have the March 28th rally, but that we don't do enough to fight back. Do you have an analysis of what we should be doing or any suggestions?
Or do you even agree with my thesis?
I do agree with it. I think part of it is that, especially compared to other nations around the world, we're basically still the toddlers on the block. We're not a very old country. And having risen to such a powerful position in such a short period of time, having been a democracy that was just this sort of first of its kind, we can do anything, we'll pull away from the monarchy and start our own form of government. We have over time become very complacent.
Yeah.
And we had this feeling for far too long when the signs were very, very clear in front of us what was coming, that this would just even itself out, or there would be a line that wouldn't be crossed. And that actually is, to some degree, the history that we now share with countries that became fascist countries or authoritarian countries or dictatorships. You wait too long because you think it can't happen. Of course it can happen. We wouldn't have any history if things couldn't happen. I mean, we wouldn't have anything to talk about. So I think, yes, we are complacent. I would hope that the 90 million who didn't vote have been awakened either by their personal experiences with the policies of this administration or just the horror at the way others are being treated. I'm not sure that that's the case at this point. We'll see in the midterms. But that's exactly how it happened. It happened far more due to apathy and complacency than it did by the number of people who affirmatively voted, because we only needed a fraction of the 90 million to vote for him to not be president.
Okay, so some people are protesting by withholding their income taxes. I'm not sure how this is going to turn out.
History teaches that tax protests are the stuff of revolutions. So, that's certainly teaches. We certainly learned that history in Massachusetts. I will tell you that when I was doing these sort of educational sessions on Project 2025, sort of breaking it down for groups of people and telling them exactly what was in it, which now nearly 2/3 of it has been achieved or is well on its way to being achieved. People were talking then in terms of, what can we do? And people talked about tax protests and general strikes. And people were talking even then about the fact that, listen, it's not that I don't want to pay my taxes. I am perfectly willing to pay my taxes. I am not willing to pay taxes that are being squandered by these people and are being used to hurt people. I don't want to do that. How do we do that? And so I think that the conversation around this has been happening for a long time. I think the press is now covering people who are willing to say that that's what they're doing and are willing to be parts of groups that say that that's what they're doing. And it's significant because they can't do it without our money. The money comes from us. People who make a huge amount of money, that 1%, he's made sure that they pay the least in taxes. So on whose backs is $1 billion a day for the last 6 days for the Iran war, and the massive shift in wealth to the top 5%, and especially the top 1%, on whose backs is that happening? It's happening on the backs of working class people, middle class people, and poor people.
So if someone called you on the phone as someone with a significant history of legal work and said, I'm contemplating doing this, am I going to go to jail? What and you share their belief in their cause, but they're asking you about the vehicle for their protests, tax withholding. What do you say to them about the likely consequences, Andrea Cabral?
I don't know why you would even ask a lawyer that question about what they would disclose to a potential client who calls to ask about advice about a potential crime, that they may be committing. But, a crime that people would be committing in protest. I mean, there is something of a difference between, somebody calls you and says, I'm going to go rob my neighbor, I'll be right back. Then,
I'll be right back.
Right. Hold on, I'll be back in like 5 minutes. You should probably report that. A protest, involves First Amendment rights and a variety of other things. People have been arrested since the beginning of time for exercising their First Amendment rights. And certainly I will say in a very general sense, not in terms of what I might specifically advise anyone, in a very general sense, as someone says in this Guardian article. And by the way, the Guardian is one of the best.
I love
amazing.
it. I love it.
Out there. Their coverage is
great.
Just fantastic. But, in terms of even the people that are quoted, willing to be quoted in the story, they say, I'm afraid to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway because I feel that strongly about it. And I understand that there may be consequences for this. One of the things that I thought was interesting in the article was they do point out that one of the reasons the IRS might not be in a position to go after people as much as it has historically is because, Trump hates the IRS and he's gutted them by 27%. They don't have nearly as much staff to do these kinds of things. Now, the offset is they're not going after very wealthy people who fail to pay their taxes or commit tax fraud. So I guess they may have, even with the few staff they have more time to go after regular people. And historically, that is what they've done because that's the low-hanging fruit. But yes, I mean, I think people everyone who protests in 2026, no matter what you're protesting, understands that there's a possibility that they will be arrested and prosecuted.
Andrea Cabral, you may have given an idea to the man we sometimes call the tax man, since he's such a tax expert.
Thank you.
He's led a few tax revolts here in Massachusetts.
Maybe I have.
This could be the cause, Jim. Forget the March, you can go to the March 28th rally, but you could be leading the withhold our taxes.
Did you read the text I just sent you?
No, I did not.
I just sent you a text and I said, Marty, I would totally support it if you withheld your income taxes. And I would try to find you a good lawyer. Maybe Andrea Cabral would do a pro bono representation. Andrea,
think about that. A nationwide tax protest. I mean, like the Tea Party, Andrea mentioned it. What do you know? Maybe that's it.
Not only is IRS down 27% in a semi-serious thing, I'm not urging people to break the law. Surely I'm not, and, calculate the odds of you getting caught. Not only is IRS bearish bones, but we talked, I think, with you a week or so ago, that because of the demands of, remember that woman who's now running for Congress, by the way, who said to the judge in Minnesota, this job sucks. This is a someone representing the U.S. attorney. And she said, I wish you'd hold me in contempt so I'd have some peace. These are quotes, by the way. This is not BS.
She wanted a good night's sleep in the jailhouse.
And she actually now is running for Congress, I think against Ilhan Omar, by the way. I think she announced yesterday. But the point I was trying to make is that the U.S. Attorney staff are overwhelmed with all the immigration prosecutions and have no time to do anything else, including prosecuting serious violent criminals in some circumstances. So there'd be fewer people to prosecute tax evaders too, right? I mean, obviously, by definition.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that these are the things that, should people be prosecuted? These are some of the things that I think they will put before judges and courts of law. I mean, people can say, I don't want my tax money supporting the killing of people in Iran or this war that Trump just sort of initiates unilaterally without any kind of advice and consent from Congress. But also they can look at the fact that Pete Hegseth, there's a watchdog report that says he spent $93 billion on fruit basket stands, ribeye steaks, ice cream machines.
We did this,
all manner of things. And people are looking at that and saying there are people who are dying because they can't afford health care. There are families whose children are going hungry. People don't have the money to pay rent or buy a house. These are the reasons people say that's taxation without representation, and my money is being squandered, and that's the argument that they make.
By the way, if you had listened to a terrific radio show on GBH between 11 and 12, you might have learned something about the ribeye and the lobster tails there, Andrea Cabral.
Well, I do know. I have read. I didn't listen, but I have read a great deal about this. It's piracy.
It is.
Piracy.
We got to go. I couldn't agree more. In month, millions and millions. Ribeye, king crab, all this, and lobster tails. Good to see you, Andrea. Take care.
Thank you, Andrea. We've been speaking with Andrea Cabral, former Massachusetts Public Safety Secretary, former Sheriff of Suffolk County, and BPR contributor. We're going to say goodbye to those of you listening on NEPM. Thank you so much for tuning in, but tune in to the fabulous 413 on NEPM at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Up next, we're going to talk with Boston Globe film critic Odie Henderson. The Oscars are coming up, about the best movies and the worst movies. Eastern Browdy, I'm Marjorie Egan. We'll be right back.
Don't miss a special edition of Stories from the Stage at our Brighton studios on March 20th. Hear bold stories that show the full extent of human ability in the most challenging situations. Tickets at gbh.org/events.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And the Bach Center's Folk Americana Roots Hall of Fame, presenting its annual induction celebration March 24th at the Bach Center Wang Theater, honoring influential artists with tributes, live performances, and an onstage dinner. FolkAmericanaRootsHallOfFame.org. And M. Steinert & Sons, celebrating the 173rd anniversary of Steinway & Sons this March. Their Newton Piano Gallery offers new and used grand and upright Steinway pianos. More at msteinert.com/March.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. A couple of quick programming notes. We'll be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. The Attorney General will be with us March 25th at 11 at the library, and the Governor will be with us March 27th, also at the library. Hello again, Jim.
Hey, and if you're watching on YouTube, Marjorie is at home. If you're wondering why the setting is different, and I am in our studio in Brighton, back at the library tomorrow. We're joined now on Zoom by one of our favorite film critics, the Boston Globe film critic, Odie Henderson, also the author of Black Caesars and Foxy Cleopatras, A History of Blaxploitation Cinema. Odie, it's great to see you.
It's great to see you guys, too. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure.
Okay, tell us about the best movies, what you think is going to win, what should win.
Wait a second. Before you do, can I just ask something? Every year, you talk about the bets you place with your buddy.
Right. That's right.
I haven't read that this year.
Didn't do it.
You gave up because you've been losing, or what's the deal?
No, you didn't read my predictions. I mentioned Danny.
I missed Danny in there. So we have a bet again?
Oh, yeah, we have a bet I mentioned him in my nomination predictions, and I mentioned him in the predictions. I mentioned that the readers like when he wins.
Yeah, that's how people feel when Marjorie wins on our show, Odie.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, a favorite and least favorite. Let's start with that.
Well, I mean, I'm rooting for Sinners. Sinners was number 9 on my top 10. If we're going to go in terms of holding me to the high, the list itself, Frankenstein was higher, but I'm rooting for Sinners. Of course, my least favorite is Marty Supreme, followed by F1. I still don't understand why F1 is on there, except for a bunch of dads voted for it and got in Best Picture category. Sound and editing, I understand. It's a auto racing movie, makes sense. But no, Marty Supreme is my least favorite. And
yeah, you really didn't like it at all, did you?
It benefited from the fact that it was the last thing I saw, and I left a space for it on both my 10 best and 10 worst list. Mm-hmm. The same thing I did for Complete Unknown last year, and it wound up being number 10 both times. It got lucky. I mean, if I had seen it earlier, it would have been much higher on the list. So
let's start
Marty,
with Sinners.
You got lucky.
Let's start with good news, because we do so much bad news on the show. Here's a clip from Sinners, which I finished watching last night. Odie's probably appalled that I watched it on 3 different nights to get through the whole thing, because I didn't have the time. Where the patrons of a late-night juke joint in the 30s in Mississippi are struggling to keep vampires at bay. Here it is.
You hardwood?
You boys twins? Nah, we cousins. Well, here she is. He moved a ton of timber.
I don't think that's what I was looking for. Regardless, that was a piece. Tell us why Sinners moved you like it did there, Odie.
Well, it was exciting. It's a director's movie, which is why it will win the screenplay Oscar, and I'll get to that in a second. But I mean, when I first saw it, I like horror movies. I like gory stuff. I like the red stuff. I come on the show every time and tell you about it. And it spoke to me. It spoke to me as someone who loves blues music, as someone who loves Delroy Lindo, the actor, and Michael B. Jordan, and had a lot of things to say about race and about music. And the text is very rich in this regard. I think it kind of falls apart just a little bit toward the end, which is why I gave it 3.5 stars instead of 4. But if I had the chance to go back, I would probably up the rating. I've seen it 3 times. I've seen it in 3 different formats. And it always is something new. What I love is that the cinematography is a little bit different depending on the format you watch it in. And I found it fascinating that they took the actual time to do that in this movie. So there's a lot of care and love in it. And it's about vampires. And normally vampires bore me to death. But I was really in on this one. And it's funny, I'm holding my Sinners ticket. When I went to see Sinners, this was a ticket they gave us at the critic screening. It was at a really lousy theater in New York. Since it's Boston, I can complain. And it was a hard time getting there. And I'm actually glad I went because it did actually have it in the 70mm format.
By the way, I usually don't like vampire stuff either, and I love this movie. Can I ask, you have a question? Can I ask a question?
I was just going to say, you don't think it's going to win, but you ask your question first.
Well, I mean, speaking of that, most experts like you say it's either Sinners or One Battle After Another. That's the Leonardo DiCaprio, Tiana Taylor thing. Here is a clip from One Battle After Another.
I need this rendezvous point. You understand what I'm saying? I need it.
I understand. And the question is, what time is it?
If you don't give me the rendezvous point, I swear to God, I will hunt you down and stick a loaded hot piece of dynamite right up your ass.
But I'm bummed. Thank you very much for that. So tell us what you think of this, and tell us what you think of this.
Well, it was always been a battle between One Battle After Another and Sinners. Since the nominations came out, even before that, people thought that it was going to be a race between the two of them. This is kind of like the Barbenheimer of 2025. Mm-hmm. And so there's this back and forth between who's going to win. Now, it's Paul Thomas Anderson won the DGA. So if you bet against the DGA, you're kind of a fool because
DGA is
the Directors Guild Award.
Okay.
A Directors Guild Award, and they've been wrong since 1948. They've been wrong 8 times. And 3 of the times they were wrong, the person that won didn't get nominated. So they've been wrong technically 5 times, and since 1948. So rooting against them is kind of like a sucker bet. So Paul Thomas Anderson pretty much has director in the bag. Now, people always thought that One Battle After Another and Sinners are going to split. One was going to be Best Picture, one was going to be Best Director. And the consensus nowadays is the same because One Battle After Another won the Producers Guild Award, but Sinners won the SAG Award, which is called the ACTRA, and I will not call it that. So it's been kind of throwing things out of whack. Also, Michael B. Jordan won the SAG Award for Best Actor this year, which throws Best Actor supposedly out of whack. Well, I don't believe it. So I think it's down to the wire. I predicted One Battle After Another simply because, not that I'm risk averse, but I still don't believe that enough people voted before the SAG won to, I think, tip it. Also, it's preferential voting. The PGA is preferential. The SAG is not.
What do you mean?
So that means that you vote for your favorite. So like, let's say that in my case, I would have had to vote for Frankenstein as number 1 and Sinners as 2 or 3. And then as time goes on, if nobody gets enough first place votes, they go and they start doing like second place. How many second place votes do you have? And so on and so forth. So it's not a straight, I like Sinners and therefore enough Sinners people voted, unless they all voted it to be the top pick. So I think that's going to throw things off. Also, there's 10 movies here, not 5.
Yeah, we know that. Too many as far as I'm concerned.
You love Frankenstein, clearly. Frankenstein had the guy that no one liked much in Wuthering Heights. Wuthering Heights did not...
This is the only movie Jacob Elordi has made that I've liked him in.
Okay.
Is Frankenstein. So, and he's great. And if he wins the supporting actor, it wouldn't surprise me, but he's not going to win it.
Okay.
So you want to talk about Jessie Buckley, Marty? You're in love.
Well, I know Sinners is great. Everybody talks about it. I'm too upset with the world to do horror movies and vampires and violence. I can't do it. So even though Hamnet was a real tearjerker, actually I saw it. You know the little tiny theater in Coolidge Corner that only seats like 60 or 70 people because it's been out for a while, but I saw it. By the time I saw it, I was in that little teeny tiny theater. Everybody's crying. The handkerchiefs are out. But I thought the woman that played Shakespeare's wife was great, and I thought the cinematography was great, even though it was a tearjerker.
It's very divisive. I saw it at TIFF. I went to the premiere of it at TIFF, Toronto Film Festival, TIFF. And it was divisive. 9 people walked out.
Really?
And when critics, we don't really talk at one screening, but at festivals we talk because you're seeing 6 and 7 movies a day and you want to try to maximize your time. So you kind of ask, what's hot? And everybody that had seen the movie had people walking out. And at the same time, people applauded. Now, I'm an idiot for predicting against Hamnet at TIFF because it got a standing ovation at my screening. And that standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. It's not Cannes. Toronto doesn't do standing ovations. They just have an audience award and they vote. Hamnet won the audience award, which threw it into frontrunner status at Best Picture. And then it just started, the heat just went off of it completely.
What was the divisiveness about?
I think that people are divisive about the Buckley's performance for starters, and also
really?
Some people think it's trauma porn, which I disagree with. I think she's fantastic. There is another angry, crazy mother performance in the Oscars for actress. It's Rose Byrne, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. And a lot of critics prefer her to Jessie Buckley in terms of them giving not a similar performance, but a similar type of character, a mother in some form of grief or mental kind of breakdown. And I wasn't that crazy about Rose Byrne's performance in If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, which co-stars the host of the Academy Awards show, Conan O'Brien.
How do you feel about that, by the way? I was going to ask you that later, but I'm a big fan. He's a Brookline kid, as everybody knows. How do you feel? This is not his first either. How do you feel about him as host?
Oh, this is his second go-around. And last year when I did my post-mortem for the Oscars, I said that he got out of the way. He made a joke and he got out of the way. And I didn't think he was particularly funny, so he made me think of Bob Hope. Bob Hope is the quintessential Academy Award host.
I didn't think he's particularly funny.
And, I think he's funnier than Bob Hope. Okay. Bob Hope isn't funny exactly once. Anyway, so I thought he was fine as a host. I mean, I hate the fact that they have to do these stupid things like songs and sketches when they could devote that time to actors in their speeches or showing clips of actors or something like that. So I think that he did a good job as host. I'm looking forward to seeing him again this year and see what he comes up with.
So you think Sean Penn is going to win in one battle after another?
That category is up in the air, but he keeps winning awards. He won at SAG, and he won a couple of other awards as well. So now he's kind of the front runner, but it doesn't mean there's a bit of a groundswell for Delroy Lindo.
Yes, who's been denied many times, right?
Well, he's never been nominated. This is his first nomination. Up until Sean Penn started winning, I would have picked Stellan Skarsgård for sentimental value to win.
Okay.
Because number one, he's a lead in a supporting performance, and that usually will win you an Oscar. And he also was an elder statesman of acting. He's been around a long time. But Sean Penn starts winning, and this would be his third Oscar, which puts him in the same category as Walter Brennan, as Jack Nicholson, as Daniel Day-Lewis, and of course, as Meryl Streep. And this would be a crappy performance for him to win the third Oscar for.
I'm almost embarrassed to ask this because of what you do for a living and how seriously you take it, even though you're a very funny guy in your writing. I love the red carpet on E. I mean, I have to say, I'm even embarrassed to admit it on the radio, much less embarrassed to say it to Odie. Do you watch that, or are you above that, Odie Henderson?
No. When Joan Rivers was on it back in the day.
Yes.
Yeah, We're doing the live blog just to pitch the Globe thing. On Sunday, we're doing the live blog at the Globe. I will be on it.
Oh, great.
And I always wanted to be Mr. Blackwell. Remember Mr. Blackwell?
Yeah.
Us old people?
Yes.
He would come on and criticize or praise the fashion. And I would love to do that. I do see what people have on. I do. I absolutely do. And we were going to have some fashion commentary, but it won't be by me. I'll be stuck with the giving like the movie stuff, but maybe so often I'll jump in and say something fashionable. I do watch it. I am not ashamed to say that I watch it.
What's the Globe thing? I wasn't even aware of the Globe run-up. What is it? Promote it.
Well, we're doing the live blog on Sunday, so you tune in when the Oscars comes on. You will see us commenting in real time.
Oh, great.
Yeah, that's great.
On the site.
So one last thing about Hamlet, not to focus, but you talked about trauma porn, which is interesting because it was the plague. It killed people, and there was a lot of very sad stuff. But I'm surprised at that in a way because when I go to the movies, one of the things that upsets me, and I'm kind of a softie, is violence porn, blowing things up porn. That the noise.
Torture porn is what they call that.
Yeah. So was really Hamlet that far out in terms of bad stuff to watch?
I think that, and I said this in my coverage from TIFF, that the death of Hamlet is very, very hard to watch.
Yeah.
And it's truthful in its grief, and Jessie Buckley kind of goes for the rafters in that. Yeah. And it didn't bother me that she did because I felt that her grief was justified. Unlike The Bride, which is out now.
Awful.
And it's awful. But it's funny because, Buckley, when Eddie Murphy was the front runner to win for Dreamgirls, he released a movie called Norbit. And Norbit was so bad that they blamed that for the reason that he lost the Oscar. And so Jessie Buckley was smart. She put her Norbit out the day after voting closed. Smart.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry.
I want to ask a general. I'm sure I've asked you this before too, but I forget the answer, and it's going to aggravate Marjorie because it's one of the things I'm obsessed with. I do all the time. This is one of the pluses of AI. I saw Sinners, and I thought it was just about the right length. However, I am a short movie kind of guy, as I think listeners know. I Googled, and in a nanosecond, AI told me the average length of the 10 films nominated for a best film are. Do you have any idea what? Take a guess.
I would say about 2 hours and 5 minutes long.
2 hours and 29 minutes. And in my view, that's about 20 minutes or 30 minutes too long. Were you on the length issue, Odie Henderson?
I am wearing a Siskel and Ebert t-shirt. I will show you.
You are?
Oh, great.
And Siskel and Ebert had a line, Roger had a line, and it goes like this: no good movie is too long, and no bad movie is short enough. And so I've seen movies that are 72 minutes long. Peter Hujar's Day is 72 minutes long, and it felt like it was 27 hours, and I wanted to jump off the damn balcony at Alice Tilly Hall. And I've seen movies that are 4 or 5. I saw the Frederick Wiseman documentary that's 4 hours long, and it felt like it was 20 minutes.
City Hall, by the way, that was about Boston City Hall most recently.
That's even
Marty
longer.
Walsh's City. Yeah.
But if there's something that interests you, it's not going to be that long. But I do believe, and I said this before on the show, you asked me, that movies overall, they tend to be too long as of late, almost as a point of like being, the director wants to kind of like show off. So like, when Anora was out last year, there were 6 movies that were exactly 140 minutes long. The Substance, Anora, I listed them. Like, what is this that 140 is now the new 90 minutes? But yeah, really, I do agree that I think that comedy should be under 2 hours long. Unless you're Billy Wilder, you can do it, pull off a 2-hour comedy. I think horror movies should be under 2 hours as well, unless it's something like Dawn of the Dead. So I'm with you that I think that some of this stuff is too long. And, I always joke about this. I have high blood pressure, so I'm on a diuretic. And if I have to sit through a movie for 3.5 hours, I can't get up and go to the bathroom because I can miss something and I get fired.
I'm glad you shared that with us, Odie. Thank you.
So, Odie, I just want to ask you, I love the way you write. I mean, you pull no punches. You couldn't stand Marty Supreme. You said, idiot plot, idiot characters, everybody's acting like an idiot. Just elaborate on what was so awful in your estimation about Marty Supreme.
I got my Marty Supreme voodoo doll behind me here. And stick pins in it. First of all, I'm not big on these quote unquote anxiety-inducing movies.
Yeah.
Because they don't induce anxiety in me. And Uncut Gems didn't induce anxiety with me. And this is the Safdie brothers. This is their trademark. Let's make a movie that everything that bad that happens is gonna like upset you, make you feel like you're in the movie with these people. Ping pong is not a sport you hustle. Okay? It's like pool, yes. Ping pong, no. So that was dumb. Marty Supreme's character is poorly written. The movie's misogynistic. I mean, the whole point of his girlfriend pretending to be abused by her husband, that was when the movie became irredeemable for me. I was already kind of like done with it before that. It's also 2.5 hours long, to Jim's point about something being too long. And it's, I hated everything about it except Abel Ferrara. Okay. Abel Ferrara, and if you're going to tell me that Timothée Chalamet is smarter than Abel Ferrara in terms of, like street smarts, love with Marty Supreme. It's in love with the type of character he is. And I hate movies that demand I love a character, an unlikable character, without giving me a reason to, or trying to force my hand and force me to liking them because of the way the screenplay is written. I think it's the worst screenplay of the year. I think it's the thing for the year. I hope if Chalamet loses, I will applaud. But I picked him to win. And last year I got burned. So
who won last year?
Adrian Brody won last year.
Oh, Adrian Brody, that's right.
Until Timothy Chalamet won the SAG award. Yeah, until Timothy Chalamet won SAG, I was with Adrian Brody. When he won SAG, I was like, oh God, now he's going to win.
The Brutalist was about 9 hours long, wasn't it? It was, we were in the movie theater forever.
It was 3 hours long.
Yeah,
that
was
half of a good movie. Half of a great movie.
That's why they called it The Brutalist. Hey, Odie, we love your stuff. We'll be checking out your blog during the show. That's great to hear.
What time does it start? 6 o'clock?
7.
7 o'clock. Okay, great.
So the fashion thing that Jim loves to watch, they consolidated into the hour at 7 o'clock, so you can see everybody's clothes.
Let me tell you, the E Network, it doesn't get any better.
Oh, the E Network starts at 2 o'clock.
I'll be watching at 2 o'clock. I got to go then. I got to get ready. Odie, it's great to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Odie Henderson.
Have fun Sunday night. We've been speaking with Boston Globe film critic Odie Henderson. He's also the author of Black Caesars and Foxy Cleopatras, a history of blaxploitation cinema. Odie's a great writer. I love his stuff. Coming up after this quick break, Jim and I will bring you some of the latest reporting on the Boston Symphony Orchestra's ouster of the great music director Andris Nelsons. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy, listening to BPR 89.7 GBH.
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, sometimes the most interesting questions don't have a clear answer. Like drifting above us, right now, mysterious shortwave radio transmissions. Codes seemingly from Iran, but impossible to trace. What's going on? Here's a really big one. How close are we to observing the dark universe? That's the Curiosity Desk, today at 1 on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you. And Johnson & Wales University, committed to accessibility in higher education and to opening doors for all qualified students to new opportunities with the JWU Pledge. Details at jwu.edu. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing helpful digital tools, world-class providers, and coverage that help you live in the moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org.
Welcome back to BPR on 89.7 GBH. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy. We decided, because the dismissal of an artist a few days ago is a guy we greatly admire, by an organization we have greatly admired, the Boston Symphony Orchestra. You know, so we wanted to give you an update, and we'll continue to do it until this saga ends. You know, no one seems to know, Marjorie, what the board and the head of the BSO meant when they said, quote, he's being dismissed because we're not aligned on future vision. We still really just don't know.
We don't know. And you know what I thought was particularly awful? The way they did it was so graceless. It's almost as if they wanted to humiliate Andris Nelsons. I mean, when I first heard it, I said, there's got to be something more to the story. Did he steal a Stradivarius or something? Or did he commit some grand lark? I mean, I just thought, why would they treat him like this with so little class? It's not something you expect from the Boston Symphony Orchestra.
I agree. And by the way, the musicians who were blindsided, they say, and I'm sure it's true, they put out a statement and said, we, the musicians of the BSO, support our beloved music director Andris Nelsons, strongly oppose the decision by the Board of Trustees to end the appointment of Maestro Nelsons. The musicians believe in Andris's vision for the future. But what I wanted to do, which I think is the most important update, it's going to take a minute, but it's important. Lorna McGee is the celebrated principal flutist at the BSO. And I have to say, I admire her courage, strength, and point of view. She wrote a letter, a post, to the BSO board members and senior management. And I don't have time to read the whole thing because it's quite long. I'm going to read you excerpts. Again, principal flute player in the orchestra. I believe that clear, respectful, and honest communication is vital to the health of organization. I feel a profound sense of loss. First, there's grief for the organization's huge artistic loss. Second, there's deep sadness at the loss of trust as a direct result of this announcement. To work with Andres is to work at the pinnacle of our profession, one of the most highly sought-after, respected music directors the world over, deepest, most humble, most sincere, truest musician I've ever worked with. She says, I started there a year and a half ago. It's Lauren McGee. Before joining, I look forward to the Golden Era Orchestra members described to me at the audition, namely a truly great artist as music director, conductor with rare combination, highest artistic skills, superb technique, while also being the most egoless, kindest of human beings, parentheses, almost unheard of, in conductors who maintained a wonderful relationship of mutual respect with the musicians. I experienced that golden era for 18 months, but that is now gone. And for what exactly, I have no idea, because there has been no communication. The decision not to renew Andres' tenure is a form of artistic suicide.
Yeah.
And she goes on to say, I'm deeply saddened by the way our organization is treating Andres. The musicians were brutally blindsided by the announcement. She goes on and she ends by saying, I implore you, please reverse your decision. Again, this is Lauren McGee, only with the orchestra for a year and a half, principal flutist. And I have to, again, not only is it beautiful, and from my perspective as a consumer of what Andres and the BSO do, not obviously an artist there, I think it's totally spot on.
Well, you know, I supposedly he's going to be here through the 2027. I don't know how you do that with the nastiness here that seems to be underlying this whole thing, which is unexplained. As I said, it's unexplained, and I don't get it.
Well, there's a Wall Street Journal piece that ends with, I think it was today, maybe it was yesterday, that says the BSO owes the musicians and the public an explanation. I could not agree more. This is a community treasure, the orchestra and Andres Nelson's. And by the way, we've invited Chad, who runs the show there, to join us. We got a response. He was too busy. We hope he finds time. But we're going to continue to update you on this because, again, the orchestra and its leader are really important to us and this community. So we will keep you apprised. What's coming up after this, Marty?
After this quick break, it is Thursday, which means it's Am I the A-hole day. This is the Dishwasher edition, Jim.
Dishwasher.
We've done this before, but we're going to do it again.
We are.
Is there a right way to load the dishwasher? And who's the bigger jerk? The person who insists on perfection before loading the machine, or the messy loader who just throws everything in there? All at one time and practically in one place. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR and 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The U.S. has long tried to combat gender-based violence worldwide, but much of that came to an end with the Trump administration's slashing of foreign aid last year.
They never said violence against women was okay. It was just getting rid of anything that made a reference to gender.
I'm Elsa Chang, the ripple effects of aid cuts on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Explore New England, an original documentary film series exploring the region's great outdoors, as well as its history, animals, and people. Available on YouTube and Roku, or online at explorenewengland.tv. And the Lowell Institute, Living a Triggered Life podcast, in person, presented by the Museum of Science, with podcast hosts Roxanne and Keith Maskall. Friday, March 13th at 7:30. Registration info at lowellinstitute.org.
Welcome back to BPR 89.7. Marjorie Egan and Jim Brown. Oh, look at Marjorie Egan.
Oh!
She did make it into the studio. Yeah, actually, you look fabulous.
Do I look cute?
You look really good.
I look sort of petrified, which kind of captures.
No, you really look good. You're often saying, do I look good today? You have pants on.
I'm looking good.
If you're not looking at YouTube, you should be looking at YouTube.
I am
Marjorie,
Ms. Potato Head over there in my seat.
Quite,
Okay.
Quite lovely.
Thank you.
In any case, After we are really low rent here in this operation. Okay, after all that drama by Marjorie, by the way, over our moldy chestnut, but unimaginably important moldy chestnut, daylight saving time earlier this week, Marjorie seems to have bumped her head into suffering from amnesia. I wake up this morning, I had a text from Marjorie, she says, she actually isn't saying, she's insisting that for MIBA Hall, we do a topic we have done before, Marjorie.
Just once before.
Okay,
Jim.
I'm as shocked
Just
as you
once.
are, but here we go. And I have to admit, I love this topic too. It's yet another domestic dispute over dishwasher etiquette. The prompt comes from the Guardian's You Be the Judge column. Emily wants her Anaya to load the machine, that's her partner, to load the dishwasher methodically. Rinse the dishes before, place them in their proper location inside. For example, turning the bowls inside down so they get washed, and then in their proper place in the shelves. Ananya is happy with her more random approach. She doesn't rinse the dishes. She stacks plates on top of each other inside the dishwasher. But Ananya says the problem isn't her dishwasher etiquette, it is Emily's controlling nature. So here's the easy, who is the a-hole question. The random dishwasher loader who doesn't give a damn, just shove them in, or the alleged controlling pro-dishwasher protocol partner, that'd be Emily. 877-301-8970. Sadly, I think we may agree today. What's your position?
Well, we don't agree entirely.
Oh, what's your position?
Well, when I had a dishwasher issue and the guy from Yale Electric came out to fix the dishwasher, he said, you don't rinse the dishes because the whatever you use for dishwashing liquid now is attracted to the little particles of food on the plate, so you're not supposed to rinse the dishes. And you know something? I've stopped rinsing them, and he's right.
That's an incredible story.
But who puts bowls in with right size up? You're going to be filled with dirty water when you're filled with doing the dishes.
You're missing the point. The issue is not whether the rinse or not. The issue was, do you have a plan for doing it, or do you not have a plan? And the answer is you have to have a plan.
Everyone has a plan.
Well, obviously,
for doing the
Ananya
dishes.
does not have a plan, does she? Shove them in is her plan. That's not a
shove
plan.
them in. Some people have the shove them in plan, but you can't shove them in with the bowls up facing up.
How about, for example, like when you put a knife in the what do you call it? The utensil thing. Is it go down or is it go up?
Well, going up probably makes more sense, but you could cut yourself.
It's got to go down. There's Marjorie again sitting in her chair in the studio. So we want to know dishwashing etiquette. Who's the a-hole? The person who just shoves all the dishes and bowls in there, doesn't give a damn where they go as long as they fit, or the person who's got a plan. And by the way, the issue is not is her plan perfect. The issue is she's got a plan, which I think is so critical to dishwashing, it's almost unimaginable.
You know what? One last thing. What is fascinating to me,
thing. We just started.
but I just want to say this one last thing about dishwashing is people do have a plan. Like when I go to my sister's, she loads the dishwasher away that I don't like. And so the issue is, are you just going to go with it the way she loads her dishwasher, or are you going to take the dishes out and do it your way? I mean, people get very upset about this. It's a little odd, but people do.
Let me tell you something. I would take out every dish and every fork if I had to. No, I'm serious. You have to stand for principle. By the way, can I ask a favor of listeners? Anonymous texter, I don't mean this harshly, but I sort of do.
Yeah.
This person says, I love you guys, but you only have 2 hours to fill, and we have to hear dishwashers again. The answer is yes, you do. Because our position, we actually have mental health issues like everybody else. You can't talk about death and destruction for 2 hours every day. So if you can't handle it, please come back tomorrow. And this is for our mental health and hopefully for the audiences as well.
Well, Jim, we're not just talking about it. We're having to read about it for another 3 hours after that. So.
That's exact. 877-301-8970. I don't even think there, almost every MIBA hole, there's a plausible argument on the other side from where one of us is. There is no argument on the other side of this. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, Jim. Listen to this.
Yeah.
My husband is the dishwasher
You really
Nazi.
do look great, by the way. You look fabulous.
Thank you. I think so.
This person on YouTube says, Mrs. Potato Head Marjorie has her pants on. Great. Look at those golden locks and that big red nose. Just love that. It's Amahaha on YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's a good fashion
really
day
good,
for me. My husband is a dishwasher Nazi. He thinks he's the only one who knows how to load a dishwasher. The only problem is every time he loads it, dishes come out dirty because, in fact, he does not know how to load the dishwasher. What is a girl to do. And I think that's an issue because you feel like you have to do the dishes over. This is what's going on in this house. They have to do the dishes twice, which, of course, is wasteful of your hot water.
You know what Ananya does afterwards when the dishes are dirty? Because
she washes them by hand.
She doesn't get that. Can I tell you something? You're going to think I'm saying this for comic effect. No, but I'm not.
What?
Everybody I know in the world is good at a few things, okay? And really good at something. Everybody. Doesn't matter how ordinary we are. This is one of the things I would put on my top 10 list. If you were to say to me, what are you best at? I would say like number 6 on my top 10 list. I know how to load a dishwasher. I would come to your house and load a dishwasher.
All right, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When you put in the big plates, do you put them next to each other, or do you leave a space between the big plates or the small plates?
You are savvier than I thought you were on this. You, of course, go large, small, large, small. Of course you do.
That's what you do. Large, small, large, small.
Yes, you do.
I've been putting large, large, and maybe that's my problem.
Well, I would say it's one of your problems. That would probably be true.
Okay, before we get to the calls and texts,
yes, please.
This is what the woman that throws everything in says. She gets things.
Ananya.
Yeah, she gets things more or less clean. More or less clean.
I forgot that line. That was a good one.
And then she says, it's not a sacred system. Yes, it is. And you don't want them more or less clean. You do want them clean. 877-301-8970 is the number. 877-301-8970. Oh, here's a good question for you, Jim.
What?
Do you put the utensils in the... Some dishwashers have the top rack, the third rack for utensils, or do you have the side rack?
I put them right by the side because you need the real water blast to do that, and that's where the water comes from. Here's a great comment from Mona on the Guardian story that was the subject of this.
Yep.
I would politely send my regrets to any dinner party Ananya is hosting. Let's take some calls. Lori in Medford, you're first on BPR. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi. I'm so glad I got on.
We're glad to have you.
Yeah, you guys cheer me up. So what I wanted to say is that I am kind of obsessive compulsive about putting things in the dishwasher, and I have to rinse them, sometimes wash them a little, and then I have to put them in a certain order.
Yeah.
But I'm lucky because I live alone, so I don't have to fight with anyone about
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, but my elderly parents live downstairs, and when my mom could still do her own dishes, she had her own way. Like, she's really intense. Like, she fills the whole sink with hot water and soap, completely washes the dishes, and then puts them in the dishwasher.
Yeah.
I love that. Old people tend to do that, by the way, because they were born pre-dishwasher.
Yeah, tell her you don't have to do that anymore.
Well, I would fight with her. Now she doesn't do that anymore, but the caregivers load the dishwasher or whatever. And then if I happen to be home and I'm putting something in, I reload what they just did.
Lori, I'm with you. The reload is necessary. If you believe in something, you have to do it. Lori, thank you for the call. Here's an interesting take, which really interesting. Anonymous says, I make my dog lick the dirty dishes before I put them.
The dog will gladly do that.
It's like a twofer kind of thing.
Yeah, twofer. Listen to Charlene from New Hampshire. This is a very volatile issue in my household. My husband just throws things in. He will not put the silverware in the little holes that separate them. I swear the mess is purposeful so that I will eventually say, don't touch the dishes. I'll take care of the dishes. She thinks it's passive-aggressive on his part.
Can I tell you, I don't know the couple. Don't you think?
Totally. That's
when you
it,
have
Charlene.
told your partner, your spouse, your roommate, whatever, how important this is to you and what's right and what's wrong, and they continue to behave in violative kinds of ways. You don't think that's passive aggressive?
I think it's passive aggressive, and I think he's trying to get her to do the work. It's like diaper changing when the babies are little. You know, the mom tells dad he's doing it the wrong way, or dad tells so the other person will have to do it. That's the deal.
Ed in New Hampshire, you're on BPR. Hi.
Hi there. Really pleasure listening to your show, but I'm a certified LDWL, which is a logical dishwasher loader.
That's two of us. Go ahead.
A long time, actually.
Tell us.
So really, the spoons can't go towards the middle because it blocks the water for the rest of the way. That's the one clue.
Love that. Say that again. That's a really important one.
Didn't
Say
know
that,
that.
Ed. Go ahead.
All right. You got to put the spoons in the back, because otherwise it blocks the water.
So true.
Wow. That's a game changer.
That's so much.
Keep going, Ed. You're my kind of guy. Go ahead.
Well, no, just earlier you had a segment. I just tell you, I take solace in the people that I surround myself with when we're talking about bad stuff.
You're a good person, Ed. Ed, thank you for an excellent call. By the way, Rebecca in Florida, I wasn't going to disclose this, but she obviously knows. Jim is an expert on this topic. He was even voted most improved dishwasher loader 2 years in a row. I was, actually. And I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Look at the one right below that, Mimi from the Cape. I load my dishwasher like a Scandinavian architect. My husband loans it like a meth addict.
This is it's a big thing. Todd and Blackstone, welcome. Hi.
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 I was listening to some of the comments on the dishwasher loading and where to put and how to put. We happen to have a 3-rack dishwasher. So utensils and silverware can go on top.
Yeah, I'm suspicious.
It also came with a basket.
Okay, I'm suspicious about the silverware on top. Does that really work?
Yes.
It does, okay.
If the dishwasher is made right, because I understand all dishwashers are not created equal.
That is a very good point.
That's true.
Now, why do you do that? Because you're lazy and it's easier to just throw them in the top rather than put them in the individual holes? Why do you do that?
Because it leaves more room. The 3rd rack is there, and that's what it's for. Oh. So rather than to take up the middle or lower rack with the other silverware basket that it did come with, I can now use that space for a pot, or plate, bowl, whatever.
I like your style.
So,
yeah, but you know what I do with the 3rd rack? And I get your opinion because you sound like you know what you're talking about. I put Pyrex tops on the 3rd rack. And I worry that if I did put like a fork beneath them, it would not get both clean. Do you have an opinion on that, Todd?
It's 50-50. Now, I do put the Pyrex lid sometimes on the top just because there's room up there.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they're either in the middle or the bottom.
Wow.
We can get away with putting it in the bottom because the heating element is not exposed.
Todd, you're amazing.
So
you really know your dishwasher stuff. It was an honor speaking to you. Thank you very much.
You know, Morgan from Westford also points out something very important.
What is it?
That you should run the hot water before you start the dishwasher, so the dishwasher starts with hot water.
That's totally untrue.
That's very important. And he also
don't you have one of those low energy things, which it's in there for like 3 hours? If you do, don't you have one of those environmentally safe dishwashers that take forever to wash the dishes?
It does take forever. Not 3 hours. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Whatever.
Unless it's heavy duty, then it's 2.5 hours. And I get dishwasher cleaner. I put that in once a month.
What,
that
the
really
jet
makes a
stuff?
difference.
The jet stuff?
No,
that's the extra dry thing. What's dishwasher cleaner?
It's the liquid guy. The guy from Yale Electric told me about it. Glisten. I think it's called Glisten. It's wonderful, Jim.
Really?
Makes all the difference, yeah.
Why do you do that? I mean, Jamie washes mine once a month. No, on his way home, he comes by. And now an anonymous, Jamie just said never again now that I've exposed him. Anonymous texter said, please, please, please start a show or a stream one time with both Jim and Marjorie replaced by potato heads. That is coming to a BPR near you, actually, very soon.
People are very enthused about the potato heads.
Listen to this. Vanna went on YouTube, says, this is brilliant. Instead of smug mugs, we need BPR potato heads. How about that?
That's a good one.
For the next pledge.
That's a good one.
That is brilliant.
Now, somebody says, I can't find it now, that what they did when they got they hand washed for ages, they finally got a dishwasher, and then they read the manual for how to load and clean and get the most efficiency out of the dishwasher. And this texter recommends that we all go back and read the manual, Jim.
Well, I'm a manual reader, to tell you the truth, but I did a trial and error. I wanted to see what worked best for me. And I found the place, and I am rather anal about it. I am. I mean, you are too, right?
I'm not as bad as you.
Maybe
I'm
you're
sure.
not. By the way, I'm telling you, that was an excellent question by you, by the way. The large dish, small dish thing
I didn't
is
know
a
that.
really important thing.
That's
I
a
forgot
game
to tell
changer,
you.
too. The
You write that
spoons-
down?
I did. The
Write it down.
spoons in the back and the large dish, small dish, large dish, small dish. I was putting all the large dishes together, and sometimes it didn't quite get in those little
Can I
crevices,
ask you another
Jim.
question?
Yep.
If everything is clean and because of the force of the water, a bowl that you properly put in flips over during the wash, and there's like a 1/4 inch of water, do you just pour the water out and use the bowl, or do you wash it again the next time? What do you do?
I pour the water out and go over it with my Swedish dish towels.
Oh, so in other words, you don't. Okay. So you do use it. You accept that it's clean, just so that
Well,
it's wet.
I rinse it out.
Oh, you do
Make sure
rinse
there's
it
no
out.
gunk in there stuck in the bottom. You know what I
Excellent.
mean? Some things never come off. Like some things really stick badly to the dishwasher.
Yeah.
What is your stickiest thing, Jim?
I don't really know. I mean, I'm trying not to avoid the question, but I really don't know.
Yeah,
because
my
I don't have
smoothies-
that many sticky
My
experiences.
smoothies, which is yogurt
They don't
and
come
oats,
out?
and they're tricky. They're very, very tricky.
You have
to rinse.
a cheap dishwasher, I assume.
I
Correct?
do. No, I have an expensive dishwasher.
do?
Yes, I do. What kind do you have?
I'm not telling. I'm not telling. Thank you.
I have a Bosch.
Oh, so
I have a
do I.
Bosch.
Oh, my
yeah.
God.
Okay. I got the more expensive one when I bought the dishwasher.
I got the
said,
cheapest Bosch they could have because I
Oh,
wanted
you-
to save money for groceries.
Oh, they're supposed to be good though, Bosch, right?
Bosch, very good. But
Okay.
let's go to Clayton and Maynard. Sorry to hold you up, but we had a talk there. Hi, hello.
No problem. Thank you for taking my mind off of Pete Exif today. I needed
We're
something.
trying. Thank you. Ours too.
So we moved into our house, and I have no affiliation to any brand. We had a KitchenAid washer, and after a few months, it started smoking. So we got rid of that.
Okay.
And we went for the high end and got a Miele dishwasher. It's a 3-rack, and it works unbelievably well. I just want to say, I think Marjorie's absolutely right. You can't have completely rinsed dishes, otherwise the detergent has nothing to interact with.
Yes.
You also don't want to put them in full of food like my sister does, because you're going to shorten the life of the dishwasher. So the answer is a quick cold water rinse, and that'll last forever. The last thing I'll say in closing is, because I'm a cheap Yankee, when my wife was away for a month, she was working on the Olympics, and I was left at home with our kids. I did an experiment, and I did all my dishes by hand, and I didn't use the dryer. I hung all the, it was unbelievable. I was barefoot, too. And our electricity bill went way down. So I just got to give a shout out to the old school on that one.
Clayton, you raised something that I can't believe we ignored. I get great satisfaction if I go to someone's house and there's no dishwasher, and I always volunteer to do the dishes because I like doing dishes by hand. It's really a satisfying experience, isn't it?
I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. I grew up without a dishwasher, and it's a very meditational thing.
Clayton, that's a beautiful call. Thank you. That's great. You like washing dishes there, Marjorie?
Well, I think I was at least 45 before I got a dishwasher, so I spent with the 3 little kids a lot of washing the dishes. I'm happier with the dishwasher.
Okay, so Jamie obviously is upset that I exposed that he comes over my house to clean out dishwasher. Because listen to this totally hostile note that he just sent me on the screen here. There is absolutely, this is capital letters, no way Jim does the dishes at somebody else's house. What is he talking about? What do you think?
I'm suspicious too.
No.
Yeah, I'm suspicious. I don't see you in a meditative mode standing by the sink.
I didn't say
Jim.
it was meditative. I said Clayton said it was meditative for him. It's satisfying. It's a very fulfilling kind of thing. And if you invite me over to your house for dinner, it's unlikely I'll come. But if I were to come, I would offer to wash the dishes if you didn't have a dishwasher.
Now, how often do you clean the filter?
Jamie, how often do you clean the filter?
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Sorry. Okay, let's go to Henry in Mansfield.
Oh, listen to
Wait
this.
a minute,
Where's
Henry,
the person?
hold on one second.
My
Sorry.
dog destroyed my Mr. Potato Head years ago.
Yeah.
And she's literally now growling at the laptop
That's a good one. I meant to
screen.
read that. That's a good one. Yeah. Look at Marjorie. If you're not watching on YouTube, you're making a huge mistake. You look really good.
You could put me right in the dishwasher
that's
after
really
the show.
Incredible likeness.
Yep.
Henry in Mansfield, you've been very patient. Welcome to the show. You got a minute. Hi.
This is an easy one.
Okay.
When you put the dishes on top of each other, just throw them in there. So the a-hole is the one that doesn't want to, that just throws things in there.
Of course.
When you have dishes, how can you put dishes on top of each other? How are they going to get clean? That's my question.
No,
how do they get clean?
They can't. And so you're with Emily as opposed to Ananya. And Henry, you were spot on. What?
Absolutely.
You are.
I agree. And also the knives and stuff like that. You put them in blade first, because otherwise, if you go in there and you're not paying attention, you're gonna stab your fingers. So
of course, that's another. Henry, that was brilliant. That is totally true.
That's right.
And on the tongs, the same thing. Henry, thank you. Stab yourself on the tongs if you don't do them.
On the tongs, that's right.
Tongs.
Sue from Connecticut says you wash a machine with vinegar and baking soda every once in a while, and that works really well. Half cup of each if you don't want to buy the special cleaner. And Bosch says not to scrape. There's an electric eye. What are you laughing at?
Like Jamie said, I'll be out of a job if they do that. I need this job. He just says in my ear.
Okay.
Oh, my God. Truth is really funny.
Bosch says you do not need to scrape because there's an electric eye that can tell when something is clean. Do you think you have an electric eye in your dishwasher?
I think when it comes to the cleanliness of dishes, I have an electric.
Where is the eye located?
We have a person on the street who just came in the studio. Let's just ask him, what is your position on random versus a protocol-laden, if that's the proper terminology, dishwasher loading Edgar B. Herrick III?
I feel like, listen, work out your own system, but you have to have a system.
You have to have a system.
Have a system.
You have a system?
I have a system.
What would be your system?
So my system is basically, it's one you learn over time. So you've got certain kinds of plates, certain kind of bowls, etc. You try them out in a few different configurations. Exactly. You're going for maximum packing, but that it all comes out clean.
That is, we failed to mention that point, is the goal is twofold. It's not just cleanliness, it's maximum packing.
Yeah, you want to get as much in there as possible when you run it.
Very good point.
But haven't you noticed, though, sometimes when the dishwasher's getting a little long in the tooth there, that if you overload it, then the edges kind of miss out?
Yeah, the edges miss out. There's water dripping out of it. I just learned it has a filter, which I'm supposed to clean. So,
MP, maximum packing. That is the key.
Maximum packing.
Okay, so what are you doing on the show thing?
Well, have you been following this amazing little story about, do you know what a number station is?
Nope.
No.
So number station, this is something that was popular during the Cold War, and it's shortwave radio, and it was used by the KGB and the CIA, and it's just like numbers being read over a shortwave radio that people can hear, but you can't really decode. Well, there's been one that's been popping up around the Iran situation in Farsi, a number station. Nobody's 100% sure who's broadcasting it, where, and why, so we're going to look at that a little bit.
Wow.
Are you watching, what's the name of the show with the great show with Rhea Sanborn that just...
the great show.
Pluribus.
Oh, Pluribus. I'm sure they're probably...
Well, I think there's a number, that guy from a Central American country, I think he's doing a numbers.
Yeah, they're a thing. It's fascinating stuff.
Okay. MP, Marjorie, not member of Parliament, maximum packing.
Okay.
Thank you for that contribution.
What would happen if you put a Mr. Potato Head in the dishwasher?
We're thinking of doing it, actually. We are going to try that tonight. There it is. That's Marjorie.
See you tomorrow.
Exactly. Okay, this is where you say goodbye to the listeners.
Thank you very much for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. Keep up with us 24/7 for our podcast, or check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow, we're back at the Boston Public Library with media maven Sue O'Connell. Live Music Friday ahead of St. Patrick's Day. The Boston-based Matt and Shannon Heaton with Celtic music. We're also going to have the Dean of the Yale School of Public Health and Dr. Megan.
What's happened there?
It's a number station.
I just threw away my
script. It's breaking in shortwave radio.
Well, you can't talk. Hold it.
Thanks to everybody who's been listening to Boston Public Radio.
I don't know how far you got. Our crew is, did you say who tomorrow is on tomorrow? You did. Our crew is Zoe Matthews, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, with additional support from Ronan Keene. Bill Francis and Patrick Lally ran our YouTube stream and are responsible for the brilliant videography of Ms. Potato Head. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jane Bologna. Marty's fine, just a technical glitch. Stay tuned to the Curiosity Desk. That'd be Edgar right here. Starting immediately after us, Culture Show with Jared Bowen starts at 2. I have to say, she's Marty Egan because she can't say it herself. I am Jim Browdy, and she is Mrs. Potato Head. We'll see you tomorrow at the library. Bye.
From the stories of centuries past to discoveries that will define our future, How Did We Get Here's, how-tos, and more. Journey with us down the rabbit hole on the Curiosity Desk. Coming up next on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Boston College, with its year-long in-person fellowship, Boston College Companions. Accomplished professionals can reflect together, explore new directions, and consider the next step on their journey. More at bc.edu/nextchapter. And Rockland Trust Bank, committed to helping individuals and local businesses work towards their financial goals by providing financial advice and resources. More at rocklandtrust.com. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News, what matters to you?
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, as the war continues in Iran, a mysterious code is being broadcast on shortwave radio. The transmission is coming from a so-called numbers station, something not used much anymore, but was once essential to the CIA and KGB for spy communication around the world. We'll learn about this mysterious code that's seemingly coming from Iran. Then from shortwave to gravitational waves, as we ask, how close are we to observing the dark universe?
And so I'm fully expecting that maybe we'll see a wormhole.
And staying in space, we mark Women's History Month by celebrating some of the area women who were foundational to modern astronomy, from the 1800s to the 1960s to today. It's all ahead this hour on the Curiosity Desk.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The Iranian people are now hearing, although apparently not directly, from Iran's new supreme leader. Iranian state media has aired a statement from Mujtaba Khomeini, son of the assassinated Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. NPR's Jackie Northam has more.
Khamenei urged the Gulf states and other countries in the region to close their U.S. military bases. Otherwise, Iran will continue to attack those countries. And he warned the Gulf states that they couldn't trust the U.S. when it promises peace and security. He said they lie. In countries like United Arab Emirates and Bahrain and Oman, they've all been struck almost daily by Iranian drones and missiles. And he said that will continue.
NPR's Jackie Northam reporting there were reports that the younger Khomeini was injured in strikes by Israel and the U.S. that began 13 days ago. The United Nations Refugee Agency says that more than 3 million people have been displaced inside Iran since the war with the U.S. and Israel began. In neighboring Lebanon, officials say more than 800,000 people have been forced from their homes. Here's NPR's Carrie Kahn.
According to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, between 600,000 and up to 1 million households are displaced inside Iran. That means up to 3.2 million people are displaced. And in a statement, officials say this is just a preliminary assessment, which will likely rise as hostilities persist and, quote, marking a worrying escalation of humanitarian needs. In Lebanon, where Iranian-backed Hezbollah militants and Israel are exchanging missile and drone attacks. Hundreds of thousands are seeking refuge in more than 400 shelter sites, but the numbers fleeing far outstrip adequate housing, with large numbers of families sleeping on Beirut streets. Carrie Khan, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
In the U.S., long security lines at airports continue to frustrate travelers. The Department of Homeland Security remains partially shut down. There are shortages among Transportation Security Administration staffers. NPR's Windsor Johnston has the latest.
Travel analysts say uncertainty is creating headaches for passengers at airports. That can mean long waits at security checkpoints and even travelers missing flights. Airline industry analyst Henry Hartfelt says the travel system was already under pressure from several factors at once.
Between higher jet fuel prices and thus higher fares, airlines having to scramble potentially to rearrange flight schedules, and the problems stemming from DHS, the airline industry right now is like a brittle piece of glass. It could fracture at any moment.
He says when passengers miss flights because of long security lines, airlines are scrambling to find seats on planes that are often already nearly full. Windsor Johnston, NPR News.
It's NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The Trump administration wants the U.S. Supreme Court to step in and rule on a program that allows Haitians to stay in the country on a temporary basis. This after a federal judge stopped the administration from ending the program. SCOTUS blog reports that the move comes a day after Boston City Councilor Ruth C. Louis-Jean, joined by Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, as well as others, worked to set up a new $4.4 million legal assistance fund for immigrants. Some 175 new citizens and their families are at the JFK Library in Dorchester today for a celebration of their new citizenship and naturalization. The citizenship candidates are presented to the court by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. This event is being presided over by Judge Brian Murphy. In sports, the Bruins host the Sharks at the Garden tonight. The Celtics continue their road trip. They play the Thunder in Oklahoma City. Then exhibition baseball, the Red Sox play the Twins. In the forecast, we are cloudy today, occasional showers throughout the day, temperatures dropping to the mid-30s, starting to get a little chilly out there right now. Clearing sky overnight tonight, low 27 degrees, cloudy and low 40s tomorrow. And then partly cloudy, mid-40s on Saturday. They're saying more of the same for Sunday. Pretty mucky out there. It is 43 degrees in Boston right now, 39 in Worcester. I'm Henry Santoro. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance, working to help protect small businesses and the owners that run them, offering customizable coverages to salons, accounting firms, tradespeople, and more. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. On the first day of U.S. strikes in Iran, there was a voice in Farsi that rang out on a shortwave radio frequency. We are joined right now on Zoom by Shane Harris. Shane's a staff writer at The Atlantic covering national security intelligence, and he wrote about this in a recent piece. Shane, thank you for your time, and welcome to the Curiosity Desk.
Thanks for having me.
Shane, what were we just listening to?
Well, that is called a numbers station. So with the person who's reading those, the voice you hear is actually reading a series of single-digit numbers in Farsi, which is the language spoken in Iran. And this was a technique that was widely used in the Cold War by U.S. intelligence agencies and the Soviets as well to communicate in a secret and essentially unbreakable way with agents that they had deployed around the world to send them messages and to send them directions when they could not meet with them face to face.
So when we say this is being broadcast, it is literally being broadcast, which is to say it is going everywhere at the same time. So anybody can listen to it. So how is this something that is used with spies when it's literally being broadcast to the entire world all at once?
Yeah, right. It's counterintuitive, isn't it? Because anybody with a radio can tune in. You can tune in at home and listen to it when it goes up probably about in an hour or so Eastern time. The key here is that the sender and the recipient of that message have a key that essentially unlocks the meaning of the message. It's called a one-time pad. The way this would work is, let's pretend I'm sending you a message. I've told you previously, tune in at the following time to the following frequency and listen to the numbers that you're going to hear. You then write those numbers down. You have this one-time pad, which essentially is like a decoder ring. You can almost think of it that way, that tells you what each of those numbers I've read out, what letter of the alphabet they correspond to, and it spells out a message. After you've decoded that, you take that pad and you destroy it and throw it away. It's called a one-time pad because you only use it one time. And as long as only you and me have that pad and nobody else, that message will be unbreakable.
Do we have any kind of a sense of, how broad was the use of these number stations at the height of the Cold War, for example? And do we know what kinds of messages were being sent, by number stations previously?
Yeah, they were not uncommon in the Cold War. The CIA would use these messages to communicate with people in Eastern Europe, agents that they needed to get messages to about meetings or orders, things that they wanted them to do, essentially. And the messages cannot necessarily be very, very long. Sure. They often might be quite short because the person listening has to kind of do the listening part a little bit away from people who might see him writing numbers down. But we know that the Cuban intelligence service used these also with great effect, still does, actually. The Soviets used them to communicate with their operatives. It was a not uncommon way, in a quite low-tech way, for intelligence organizations to communicate. And again, everyone knew that each other were doing it, but unless you had the pad to unlock the messages, they were just gibberish. You were never going to be able to break the code.
Also, music geeks of a certain age also, I think, would know about number stations. There was this thing called the Conant Project, which was a multi-CD set, which is what the band Wilco, that album Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, which that is a number station, essentially reading that Yankee Hotel Foxtrot that's used in that track Poor Places. So this is sort of something that's also in the music world's consciousness to a certain extent.
That's right. And if you watch The Americans, you saw it there, too.
Totally. Absolutely. So let's talk about this one in particular. My understanding is the first time that one has come online speaking Farsi in probably a quarter century. I think back in around the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan in 2001, there was a number station that popped up using Farsi. What do we know about this one in particular, if anything?
Well, so right now we know that according to shortwave kind of amateur enthusiasts who track this stuff, really,
and they are out there, by the way. That is a community with a capital C.
It sure is. And there's a group called Priom, Priym, that I've relied on a lot. So shout out to them for keeping really great track of this station, which they have dubbed V32, according to a standardized classification system. So it has a name. We don't exactly know where it originates, but using techniques to try and triangulate the signal, there's pretty strong evidence that it seems to be operating somewhere in Europe, maybe Western to Central Europe. That's a pretty big geographic area. Initially, I thought, and I think others did too, that this could be the Iranian intelligence service trying to get a message out maybe to its agents in Europe or even in the United States. Homeland Security officials have been really on guard for the possibility of Iran launching attacks inside the United States. Maybe this was the signal. Now we think there's some evidence that suggests that it's not coming from the government of Iran because on the third or fourth day, I think it was, the signal started getting jammed. Somebody was broadcasting another mechanical sounding transmission.
So drowning it out.
Yeah, trying to drown it out, exactly, trying to jam it. And the amateur trackers had spotted the Iranian government using that very same jamming technique years earlier on a kind of Radio Free America broadcast in Persian that the Americans were trying to beam into Iran, which made them think, okay, this might be the Iranian government trying to
block it. Yeah.
Right. So does that mean the signal is actually meant for somebody in Iran who's opposed to the regime? So that's kind of the going theory right now. But that's really about all we know, other than it goes up at the same time twice a day. It reads for about an hour and 15 minutes. And every 15 minutes into the transmission, it kind of has a break. And then another sequence of numbers begins that go for 15 minutes. And then there's a break and another sequence begins. So it's pretty regimented.
Yeah, you're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. We're talking with Atlantic staff writer Shane Harris about the use of shortwave radio signals to deliver codes from the 20th century all the way up until now. You got a chance to listen to this happening. You kind of met up with some of these folks that you were talking about. Tell us about that experience. What was it like?
I mean, it was great. I've been a number station geek for a long time. Yeah, I mean, I actually discovered them by accident as a kid playing around on a shortwave radio that my parents had. And it was years before I knew what these things were. So, I mean, you can imagine being like an 8-year-old and hearing this disembodied voice on the radio.
Just droning away
reading
with numbers.
It's creepy. But then when I became an intelligence reporter, I had a reason to look into this. So I've kind of been, I've been aware of Pre-Ohm and those folks for a long time. And I'm just sort of more interested in it as a curiosity. So when I saw on social media that this number station was broadcasting, I immediately went over to the Pre-Ohm site, and they have a Discord server that you can go and chat with them. And they were tracking the times at which they had seen the number station broadcasting. And they usually do broadcast at regular intervals, because if you're meant to hear the message, you need to know when to tune in. So I went over to I don't have a shortwave radio, but you can find interfaces for them online. So I went to one that is based in the Netherlands that I use a lot, and tuned into the frequency where we expected to hear it, and there was the voice coming across loud and clear and live, and it was really exciting, I have to say.
So you used the word curiosity. Obviously, our show is called the Curiosity Desk, and as a curiosity, I think it is on its face an interesting kind of thing. But what, if anything, does it tell us about what's happening in Iran right now, besides the fact that it's just, hey, this is kind of cool that this old technique's being used?
Yeah, well, so let's just assume for that, because it's a great question. So let's hypothetically assume this is some kind of opposition group outside of Iran that has followers or even, operatives inside of Iran. If they are trying to send them messages right now, that could suggest that they're not able to get messages through the internet, for instance. There's an internet blackout that the regime in Iran has been enforcing. If they're trying to get messages to them, are they urgent? Are they operational? Or are they telling them, hey, go do things, attack the following targets? Whoever's broadcasting this, presuming it's not a hoax, it wants to deliver some kind of message to some individual. It's also possible, and again, we don't know, that this could be kind of a misinformation operation. I mean, some people have speculated, is this actually the U.S. government broadcasting this message because it wants the Iranians to believe that there is this network of
agents? We are like 6 levels deep here now.
Right, exactly. So is it like a psyop or something? And, and so I think what it does tell you, though, is that there's someone is motivated to do this. It's been going on long enough now with enough regularity that I don't think it's a prankster, because, unless they're really just enjoying the fact that they're getting, people at the Atlantic to write about it. Yeah. I don't know what the point would be of keeping up the joke for this long. So somebody is intending to send a message that they only want the person hearing it to be able to understand. And that speaks to some operational significance that we don't really understand yet.
What's left here for, we talked about the amateur radio community. Obviously, this is a group of people who are, sort of avid, fans of this kind of thing, whether, not just number station, but just the technology itself and the ability to do this. You talked about, sort of trying to triangulate where this is coming from. Is that something that will continue to happen? Is that something that over time they may be able to get more clues about, or is it just like this is what it is and there's nowhere else to go from here except for to just keep listening to it every so often?
Well, they'll keep trying, but I have to say, in the past couple of days, I've been checking in. It seems like they're doing less of the kind of triangulate, find where the signal is, because that's only gotten them so far. I think they feel pretty confident it's in Europe. They actually one guy tried to teach me how to do it. It's really hard. It's not. It's not intuitive.
Wait, give us a little about that. How do you triangulate where it's coming from?
So what you have to do is you have to essentially log into, and you can use online you could do this with an interface, but imagine that you were kind of tuning in to 3 different frequencies on the shortwave at once. And there is a filter that can be used to try and measure the time that it takes a signal to essentially travel. I may be butchering this, but you're watching how fast the waves are moving to try and get a sense of where is the likely spot that they might be originating from. And it sounds like, sort of like something you see in a movie, right? Like, oh, we'll just triangulate the signal. I mean, practically doing that is super hard. Yeah. And even these guys who know how to do it will tell you it only gives you kind of a degree of confidence. It's not always conclusive. So what we have to do now is kind of like, and what I'm sort of interested in doing is trying to find out, like, who are the people who might be broadcasting this and kind of probe them and say, hey, are you doing that? And so we'll see where that goes. But the technical part of this that's really important, too, is that these people are tracking it regularly. They're keeping logs of it. So we have a real understanding of how often it's broadcasting and if it's moving around on the shortwave band.
Well, when you find out more, we will have you back. Shane Harris is staff writer at The Atlantic covering national security and intelligence and author of the recent piece titled A Mysterious Code is Being Broadcast on Shortwave Radio. Is it Iran? Just ahead, how close are we to observing dark matter in the universe? It also involves waves, but of a different kind. This is the Curiosity Desk on GBH. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, the medical drama The Pitt drops viewers into the chaos, mania, and moral gray zones of the emergency room. But how close does it come to the real thing? New Yorker writer and physician Dhruv Khullar has been thinking about exactly that and what the show reveals about modern medicine and the system behind it. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for our programs comes from you and the Cape Cod Foundation, committed to building resources to support community life on Cape Cod, including environmental conservation, arts and culture, and community development. Learn more at capecodfoundation.org. And Compass on the Bay, an assisted living community in South Boston for those with Alzheimer's and related dementias, with research-based therapeutic programming for those with memory loss. More at compassonthebay.com.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Over 100 years ago, somebody you might have heard of, Albert Einstein, predicted the existence of gravitational waves. Now, 100 years later, plus LIGO, or the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, confirmed that theory and offers us a new way to advance our understanding of the universe's cosmic history. This leads us to the big question: how close are we to observing the dark universe? To help us answer that question, we are joined by two scientists. Salvo Vitale is an MIT astrophysics professor, and Nergis Mavolvala is the dean of the MIT School of Science and associate professor of physics. Hello to you both. Welcome to the Curiosity Desk.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Hey, good to see you.
Okay, let's talk about LIGO. What the heck is LIGO? Can you explain what this thing is to us?
I'll give it a try. So LIGO is it's a giant telescope, if you will, but it's designed, instead of measuring light from the stars, it's designed to measure a different kind of wave, a gravitational wave that usually comes to us from dark objects like black holes and sometimes these other exotic objects called neutron stars. What's really special about LIGO is that it measures the changes in distance between objects, because that's what a gravitational wave does when it passes through the Earth. And it does it with enormous precision. You can ask me how precise, because it will blow your mind.
Well, we'll get into the precision in a second, because I want to kind of give folks a sense of the complexity of the issue of observing gravitational waves, right? Because you say, I mean, it's one thing to sort of say like, well, a telescope measures light. We all see light. Light is pretty easy to see, so to speak. The wave see. But when we're talking about gravitational waves, maybe you give a sense of just like how difficult it is to even detect a gravitational wave as opposed to a light wave.
So the difficulty is, light, it sort of triggers optical neurons for our eyes, and we can see it.
Yeah.
Gravitational waves we have no physical sensor for, but we can ask, what do they do here on the Earth? And what they do as they pass through the Earth is they change the distance between, say, you and me, Edgar. And literally.
Like as you're sitting there, I'm sitting here.
Yes. We are
But if a gravitational wave comes flying through here, it's going to...
Ever so slightly.
Okay,
how slightly?
How slight?
Yeah, there's a catch.
What's
Salvo
the
can
catch?
tell us.
Salvo, what's the catch?
That is really the catch, is that they are very weak. I mean, that's why it took 100 years to find them, right?
Yeah.
It's like people were waiting, twisting their thumbs in the meanwhile. So to give you an idea, LIGO... it's 4 kilometers long in size.
Okay, so that's pretty long.
Yeah. Nergis can convert in mile. I'm a European, sorry. I use kilometers.
2.5 miles.
And if a gravitational wave passes through, our typical gravitational waves, it will change this distance, this 4 kilometers, by a size which is less than the size of an atom, or a proton, in fact. So it is insane that it works.
Yeah.
Right?
That is crazy. How do you make it work?
So the idea is actually quite simple.
How do you keep it still enough that the only thing coming through it is a gravitational wave?
Great question. So say the gravitational wave is coming between you and me. So there's a very simple concept of how to measure it.
Okay.
I can shine a laser beam at you.
Yeah.
And say you're a good mirror and you reflect it back to me. And if I had a really good clock, all I do is I measure the time it took the beam to hit you as a mirror, come back to me.
Yeah.
And if a gravitational wave came between us, that time would change, right? Because it's changing the distance.
Because we know the speed of light, right?
Exactly.
Is that it? And so if it's different than the speed of light...
Well, no, the speed of light would be the same for light, but if the distance changed, then the amount of time it took the light pulse to go from you to me would change. Yeah. And if we had a really good clock, we would measure that and we are done. Now, the problem is that the distance between us is changing by such a teeny tiny amount that we don't have clocks that are good enough.
Okay.
And so what we do in the real LIGO instrument is we have an L-shaped instrument, and the light travels along both parts of the L, and we use one L to compare to the other. So you can think of it as we have one really good clock that's keeping time for this other piece. And that's the principle.
You agree, Salvo?
Yeah, I mean, to the extent I understand. I work on theory, so for me, I believe it works in my naive mind. So I've been to the LIGO sites. Yeah. The first time I imagined them as having a green button that says data. It doesn't work like that. They are very, very complicated.
We're gonna talk a little bit about the difference between the theorists and the experimentalists in a minute, but let's talk a little bit about in the time that we've had LIGO. It's about 10 years, right? It's 10-year anniversary
since the first discovery. So those were in 2015.
Yeah.
But LIGO as an experiment that was being built up it precedes that moment by decades.
But from the first data that came in till now, we're at about 10 years.
Yeah.
So what are the big moments we've had with LIGO and the data that's come in? What have we observed that we couldn't see before?
The very first discovery was by itself important, not just because of gravitational waves being detected, but because those waves came from two black holes, and they were roughly each 30 times the mass of our sun. And up to then, the black holes that astronomers have found with normal telescopes, they were all around 10, 12 solar masses. And so the fact that we saw something that big, that massive, was a big surprise by itself. Okay. We just had never seen anything like that before. And since we have very quickly detected more and more sources, and some of those have been oddballs. We detected,
Tell us about the oddballs.
Well, we detected a few years ago something that is times the mass of the sun, and nobody knows whether that is the lightest black hole ever found or the heaviest neutron star, this other exotic object that Nergis mentioned, ever found. We just don't know.
We don't know.
The data cannot tell us that by themselves, right? We need more information. And then we found also black holes that are so massive that they shouldn't be, we're not sure why they're around, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then of course, now that we have 100, 150 events, we can also start to gather information about them, the whole set, right? What characteristics do they have in common?
Yeah.
What's different, right? Are they mostly light or heavy? Do they rotate or don't rotate? Do they violate Einstein theory? They don't. Depressingly, the data is very consistent with Einstein relativity.
So he was pretty good.
He was a pretty smart guy.
Is that one of the conclusions? Like,
yeah.
Wow, that guy was pretty good.
Fair enough, yeah.
How about for you? What are some of the, the sort of big moments that you feel like in terms of the data that's come in so far?
So I'll just tell you, I've spent most of my career designing and building the instruments. So for me, the
fact that it works, you're like, that's the win.
That goddamn works is like really just, phenomenal. But then after that, you have to ask, what can it see? And it's seen black holes, it's seen some neutron stars. We hope to see things like supernovae, and well after my lifetime, and probably even Salvo's, who's much younger than me, eventually we hope to be able to look as far back as the Big Bang. But that's kind of far away in the technological future of these instruments. So one of the things that I spend a lot of time thinking about is, how do we make the detectors better so we can see fainter objects, farther away objects, more exotic objects, things we haven't thought about?
How do you sort of improve or tweak or tinker with this? Like, can you put it in terms of, I'm sort of imagining, I don't know, something simple like I work on a car engine and I like get a nice car engine sort of baseline, and then I'm like, I want to soup this up. I'm going to do a little over here. I'm going to do a little over there. I mean, is that how it works with something like LIGO, but just at a very complex scale, or no?
I think that's a good analogy, because in the end, even when you have these very complicated instruments, which usually takes a couple of hundred, researchers, scientists, and engineers and technicians to make work, every piece of it is a bite-sized piece in the end, and someone put that together. In fact, if you look at some of these most complex experiments, each part of it actually works pretty well. It's only when it has to talk to another part of it, it's the interfaces that you have to get right. So, but I think the building blocks are very accessible.
We're talking with MIT scientists Nergis Mavalvala and Salvo Vitale about LIGO and observations of things like neutron stars and black holes and the dark universe. Let's talk about the theorists and the experimentalists. Salvo, you're a theorist. You are an experimentalist. It sounds like. How does the work interface with each other? How do you work together? What is different? Do you get in a lot of fights? Do you have disagreements about how you're building LIGO, what you should do next, etc.?
I mean, so if I take this one, so it's great to be in a place where we have people from both worlds is fantastic, because as you think, for example, how can I make this better, right? Some changes will enhance a particular flavor of the science you do, and others will enhance a different type of science, right? Yeah. And so very often with Nergis or other friends at MIT, we can in discussion into, okay, if I can change something this way, what extra science can I do? Or the other way around, I can go to Nergis and say, hey, Nergis, we have these great astrophysical objects out there. It would really be great to get gravitational waves from. Can you do the instrument, make this? And she'll tell me, no, you're crazy. That's too hard. It's impossible, right? But at least we can discuss.
Yeah. How about for you?
It's a great answer. It is exactly this synergy between ideas that come from theory. And then, of course, one of the things that's really important about theory in science is that ultimately, in physics especially, it's a bunch of math. Yeah. And the important thing that you have to ask is, does nature really behave that way? And how do you answer that question? You have to go out and measure. You have to go observe nature.
Is that an open question? This idea, I think
all the time.
I think people are like, well, math is, I don't know if we assume it, but it's sort of like, yes, math is the ultimate, like all we are doing with math is describing the universe. But you're saying we're not 100% sure that that's the best language for us to be using when we're
I would say it is the best language.
It's the best we have.
But I think what Nergis was going at is that the data sometimes, the data doesn't come with a label. I say black hole, neutron star, wormhole, right? Mm-hmm. The data is a bunch of wiggles in our detector, and from like those or those, and from this, like the work of people like me is to say, okay, you know what? These wiggles came from two objects 30 times the mass of the sun doing this.
So it's more about us understanding the language better than it is whether or not that is the language of the universe.
I think yes. I think for us, in the present time, we agree mathematics is the language that describes the universe. But there are very many models you can make with math. Which one actually applies to nature is part of the job of scientists to make measurements and observations. And that's the synergy that happens.
Yeah. How did you find yourselves on this project? I mean, I imagine you are both clearly very smart people. You could have done any number of things.
Where's the evidence for that?
Well, I would say all those squiggles, if those are real, the fact that you were able to detect those squiggles, which was like basically something Einstein can only theorize about, that feels to me like, we'll label you as pretty smart. So, I mean, you could obviously go into a lot of stuff. What is it about this that excites you, continues to excite you, keeps you on it?
It's like, we are in a unique position, I think, or nearly unique, that very often, whenever we see something, it's the first time a human has seen that or measured that.
Which is
thing.
kind of amazing.
Not many people can say that.
Yeah.
Like in 2015, when we saw those wiggles and measured the parameters, like that was the first time that was ever done.
Yeah.
It really gives you energy
Did you
to
pop
keep going.
champagne?
Yes, of course.
I still have the bottle. It's
really?
One of the bottles in my office.
And how about for you? What keeps you going
so,
here?
it's the same thing, this idea that we're able to observe the universe in ways that have never been done before. And of course, that means we're going to learn something new. And then for me, there's an added piece to it, which is that pushing the technology, the precision of the instrument requires you to be very inventive. So, there's almost nothing in these experiments that you can go buy off a shelf.
Yeah.
Everything you're designing from scratch, you're meeting very stringent requirements. And I love that part of it as well, just the inventiveness of technology.
Solving problems every day in that way. Yeah, that's kind of cool. All right, so I understand you've both cited the late Rainer Weiss as a mentor in this work. He giant in the field. He was a Nobel Prize-winning physicist. The LIGO, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't happen without him, right? I mean, essentially.
Agreed. Yeah.
So we have a clip of him here talking very matter-of-factly, I must say, about big discoveries potentially in the future. Let's hear a little here.
And so I'm fully expecting that maybe we'll see a wormhole.
A wormhole?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's you, I think.
And I'll tell you how we'll see it. Right. We'll see it that there's a special place in the sky
can't hear it.
where we see more than we should of gravitational waves. It's not isotropic. It's not uniformly distributed. And that will be the connection to another very interesting spot.
Some technical issues on our end. Our guests could not necessarily hear that, but that was him saying that, we'll probably see a wormhole. Yes? I mean, will we? What do we think about that?
Nergis, you go first.
Go, Nergis.
So I'll say a couple of things. I think there's no reason to believe we couldn't. Are we close enough to, or even close enough to understanding what these are, to know what to look for? Probably not. And I'll just say one last thing. I've worked with Ray Weiss for nearly 40 years. He was almost never wrong. So,
so doubt him at your own peril.
If I can add something to that, which I think is important to stress, is that we call these things that we're seeing now black holes.
Yeah.
But if you have to be like a pure theorist, like some friends at MIT, they would say, you should be clear and say there are things which are consistent with being black holes. They may be other things, right? Other more maybe exotic objects. And, it's hard very often to say, no, you're wrong, because the precision required to distinguish a black hole from something which is very much like a black hole, but slightly different.
Yeah.
It's really, really tiny. And so it's a very tricky business.
It seems to me as well, this is one of those things kind of, when we think about, what are we going to spend our time on? What are we going to spend our money on? In favor of something that is an instrument detector, in so much as, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like what you're saying is, if we are just collecting raw data, right, if we're collecting this stuff, we may be seeing things that we don't know yet what it is that we are seeing. And sometime in the future, when AI is better, or our computing is better, or we have some other kind of breakthrough in our understanding, we may be able to go back through this data that we've collected and said, oh, wait, we've known about this for 50 years.
Right. In scientific experiments, that happens all the time. And I don't expect that we'll be different. So I think as technology improves, as our imaginations get wider, as we get more used to seeing these things, that should happen.
Yeah, definitely.
What is the future? What are the big goals, or what are the big dreams or the big hopes as we look at, say, the next 10 years with LIGO, and what are the things we hope to really be able to see or start to describe look a lot like they are consistent with what we think is what?
What we hope, I think, is that in 10 years, there will be something new, what comes after LIGO. There will be something that looks a bit like LIGO, but much bigger, that buys you sensitivity, like a factor of 10 bigger. Not 4 kilometers, but 40 kilometers. Ooh. We are thinking about that. And you can do the math, which I love to do. You can show that simple factor of 10 basically buys you seeing black holes in the local universe, which we're doing now, to see them past the point where there should not even be stars in the universe, when the universe was very, very young, right?
Yeah.
And so the way, like the bumper sticker is, we're gonna see black holes no matter where they are in the universe, which is like insane. In 10 years, right? It's like if the person after Galileo invented the first telescope built James Webb or Hubble, right?
Like that kind of a jump.
Yeah.
Wow.
In only 10 or 20 years.
Can we talk about this idea of seeing the Big Bang? Like, or sort of, I mean, I've seen that phrase, which sounds like is maybe not exactly right, but can we talk about the relationship between time and distance here when you say, like, we can see good enough or far enough or whatever, that's also sort of allowing us to see old enough?
Yeah. So, for astronomers, sort of the farther out you see, the further back in time you're looking. So if you could get far enough out into your observations, you're looking at the beginning of the universe or the Big Bang. And what we know about that time after the Big Bang, most of what we've reconstructed comes from light, from photons.
Yeah.
And in the very early universe, the photons are extremely friendly. They scatter off of atoms all the time. They scatter, they
Go
disperse.
Find new friends.
Yeah, exactly. So
Move away
when
from
the
home.
universe was young and hot, the light just couldn't escape. It was just scattering off of the atoms. Gravitational waves, on the other hand, are extremely aloof. So they've been streaming to us from the earliest moments of the Big Bang. So I'll give you an example. If you could take LIGO today and make it something like 100,000 to 1,000,000 times more sensitive, you could see gravitational waves that from the universe when it was 10 to the minus 22 seconds old. With light, what you see is when the universe was 400,000 years old.
Yeah. Oh,
so it's very big difference.
Like
so if you want to look
enormous
really back to the earliest moments of the universe, this is your guy.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, now if I am not really interested in seeing the origins of the universe, or I hear,
I'm sorry, if that is the case. Please continue.
Well, no, wait. Why do you care so much?
Because I think it's like to me this falls in the category like for the betterment of humankind.
Yeah.
And you never know what is going to be useful, right? A lot of fundamental research was very far at the beginning from what turned out to be like fundamental applications, right? Yeah. And Nergis is more qualified to talk about things like transistor, like whatever, right? That today is in our phone. And so you never know what's going to be useful. And of course, in Nergis, what they do on the instrument side has already now very important applications.
How so?
So, I think when you're making instruments that achieve that kind of precision, you're inventing new technologies. Yeah. We've invented vibration isolation technologies to keep our mirrors really still. We've invented lasers that are quieter than any that were ever made before. We've invented photonic techniques that are allowing us to make applications even to far off things like quantum computing. So, this is one of the beauties of fundamental discovery science. A, you'll discover something, but B, you'll be sort of doing two things. You'll be inventing the technologies of the future, and you'll be training the generations of scientists who may go off and do completely other things, but this is what inspires them.
Definitely.
Well, we're going to leave it there. We've been speaking with MIT scientists Salvo Vitale and Nergis Mavalvala about LIGO's observations of the dark universe and what we can expect to see in the future. Thank you both for spending time with us and sharing your expertise.
Thank you. That was really fun.
Stay with us. Just ahead, we stay in outer space with a look at some of the women throughout history who have made legendary strides in the field of astronomy, and they're all local. This is the Curiosity Desk on GBH. Don't go away.
Massachusetts has 26 gateway cities.
Worcester, Springfield, Lowell, Brockton, Lynn.
This year, we're going to get to know them all.
Quincy, New Bedford, Fall River, Lawrence, Haverhill.
26 and 26.
Malden, Taunton, Revere, Peabody, Chicopee.
If you live in one,
Methuen, Everett, Barnstable, Attleboro, Salem, Leominster.
We want to hear from you.
Pittsfield, Fitchburg, Westfield, Chelsea, Holyoke.
Visit gbhnews.org/gateway cities.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the Simmons Leadership Conference, a one-day experience featuring Hoda Kotb, Misty Copeland, and Juliet Funt. Tuesday, March 17th in person in Boston and online. Learn more at inclusiveleadership.com. And the Massachusetts Teachers Association, working together to ensure that all students have the resources they need to succeed. The MTA, a diverse union of education workers committed to the public schools and colleges our communities deserve.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Standard history texts can do a pretty poor job sometimes of telling a complete story of all the people who shaped events and transformed eras. It's partly why things like Women's History Month, which is in March, which we are in, were created to remind us to sometimes take a more detailed and often more interesting look at the past. To that end, we've invited friend of the show, Daniel Berger Jones, back again. He's president and founder of the Boston History Company. And if you're on TikTok or Instagram and the algorithm knows you live in Boston, there's a really good chance you have seen his videos. Daniel, we're especially wanting to hear about women in astronomy today, so thanks for being with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me back. I appreciate it.
Here it is, Women's History Month. We are two guys sitting in a studio talking about women in science, but let's start with the man, Edward Pickering.
Edward Pickering, man, he's so influential because the story is so... It's a dual story. It's Edward Pickering, and then there's this woman named Williamina Fleming, and the two of them together. Williamina Fleming's like 21 years old when she emigrates from Scotland in 1878, comes over here and is, barefoot and pregnant, as they say. Not barefoot, but literally pregnant. 21 years old, and her husband abandons her. And she has no choice but to go and get work as a maid in Edward Pickering's house. Now, he is the director of the Harvard Observatory. And he gets frustrated, apparently, about 1880 with his staff, and he goes, my Scottish maid could do better than you people. And so he puts that to the test, and he hires her in 1881, and she sits down, and she is, by all accounts, just a brilliant human being. And she starts to look. Women are not allowed to look through the telescopes at the Harvard Observatory. So she looks through these.
They're not allowed to look through the telescopes?
Correct. You don't want to let women near expensive equipment, Edgar. This would be
crazy.
Yeah, come on now. So instead, they give her all these photographic plates, these glass plates. Yeah. First guy to figure out how to photograph a star's spectra was this guy named Henry Draper. So he has all these things he's sending back to Harvard, and she starts to make measurements and classify them, and she develops the system of classifying stars according to the level of hydrogen in them. And that sort of evolves into the modern classification for stars that we have today. But she's the one who gives him the inspiration, like, go seek women. They will work harder and they will do things that men aren't willing to do, because every man wants to be looking through a telescope to discover the next comet in the sky. Well, these women are actually doing science, looking at these photographic glass plates. So Williamina Fleming is the first of them. They are called the Harvard computers. Edward Pickering hires a bunch of them, particularly Radcliffe women. They have a sort of disparaging nickname. They're called Pickering's harem. And I think, I think even he would say, come on now, that's not really fair. Especially when, Henrietta Swan Leavitt comes in the early 1890s. Annie Jump Cannon, who's famous for having classified like 350,000 stars, which means every man looking through a telescope combined still has not identified as many stars as this one woman who could do 3 of them per minute. She was doing 200 stars per hour, classifying them according to their luminosity, how brightly they burn. And the system goes OBAFGKM. The way that I can remember that is, it goes, oh, be a fine girl, kiss me. So
mnemonic device.
Exactly, in keeping with Pickering's harem. And then there's Henrietta Swan Leavitt, who everybody says if she had not died in 1921 would almost certainly have won a Nobel Prize, because she's the woman who, looking through these photographic plates, sees that some of them are really bright. Some of the stars are really bright in some plates and not as bright in the others. And she realizes that they're pulsing, and they're called Cepheid variable stars. And she figures out that there's a relationship between that pulsation of light and the period in which she basically figures out a way to calculate how far away these stars are. That's going to pave the way for Edwin Hubble later to figure out, if those stars are that far away, then the universe is much bigger than we thought, and the Milky Way is not the only galaxy. So blows everything wide open.
Unbelievable. Do we have any? I mean, do we have a sense of like what the data, just sort of like what the environment was like that they were working in, like at this space, and like like where were they located? Where was Pickering while they're doing all of this work?
So he's often with them, as a matter of fact, and monitoring them. But it's all happening at the Harvard Observatory. You can still visit it, as a matter of fact. They sometimes offer viewing nights and things like that. It's over sort of Linnaean Street in Cambridge, but for the most part, it's happening there. There's some stuff actually happening in Radcliffe, but there are photos of them at work, and 3 or 4 women kind of at a desk, or anti-jump cannon with a little prism looking them. It's amazing. They also have a notebook of anti-jump cannons and some of these photographic glass plates on display at the Harvard Collection of Historic Scientific Instruments.
That's fantastic stuff. So this is work that's happening mostly in the 1800s. Did Edward Pickering either take or get all of the credit for this work? I mean, we're sitting here in 2026. You're able to describe and tell this story, I think, in part because we have the lens of history to look back through. But at the time, did people know that they were doing this work, and were they getting credit in the moment?
So, I like to joke with people that if you go to Radcliffe, you're going to have Harvard on your degree as of 1963, but the Radcliffe president still has to sign it if you're a woman. Doesn't count for men, and that happens until 1999. It's similar in that they are actually getting the credit, but he has to sign off on all the papers. He's sort of call him the senior scientist on all of these papers. But they do get credit, and he is actually pretty vocal about making sure
Good for him.
Yeah, he's not a bad guy, despite the "oh, be a fine girl, kiss me" thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, you do need mnemonic devices.
You gotta have some.
All right, you're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. We're talking about notable local women who made historic contributions to astronomy and the space program. Daniel Berger-Jones is with us. He's from the Boston History Company. Daniel, let's jump forward to the 1960s. It's a time period where we think about the space program, the Apollo programs going on in the 60s, heady times. MIT scientists have a role in that program, and there's a woman at MIT named Margaret Hamilton who plays a pretty big part.
Absolutely. She's one of my favorites. If you don't recognize the name, it's also the name of the actor who plays the Wicked Witch of the West in the Wizard of Oz
Different
movies.
Margaret Hamilton.
Different Margaret Hamilton.
All right, so just for the record.
Not the Wicked
Not the
Witch.
Same.
This Margaret Hamilton, born 1936, she's young. I mean, she's young when the Apollo program goes to MIT and basically says, look, I mean, we're in a space race with the Soviet Union. Yeah. What can you do for us? And luckily, they already have the CID lab, which sounds way more James Bond than its full name, which is the Confidential Instrumentation Development Laboratory. But
I don't know. Confidential Instrumentation Development Laboratory also kind of sounds sort of James Bond to me.
You can see Q at work
you can see
in
Q
here.
saying that.
Either way, it's run by a sort of eccentric guy named Doc Draper, and Doc Draper is...
That's also a great James Bond name, Doc Draper.
He is the man. So Draper Labs is still functional in Cambridge, of course, and if you go there, you can go into their lobby. They let people in there on Fridays in the afternoon, and you can see the gigantic moon model and Mars model up above, and there's also a statue of him that apparently he was... fond of making peace through the bar. He had a button in his office where you could click it and all clocks would go to 5 o'clock and he'd go, well, I guess it's about that time.
Oh, that's amazing.
So the statue of him actually opens up the chest as a bar. Anyway, he's the guy who, the first computer programmer that he hires when Apollo program says, can you program our computers? First person he hires is a woman, and she is in her late 20s, early 30s. It's Margaret Hamilton. And one of the problems that they have to solve is computers are slow and clunky and don't do things like they're supposed to in those days. And if you give them more than like 3 things to do at once,
start smoking.
Yeah, they'll just shut down, right? Which is a huge problem.
Does not compute.
And if you're Neil Armstrong or Buzz Aldrin, you're up in a capsule and you're coming screaming at 40,000 miles per hour towards the surface of the moon, and then the computer's just like, nah, I'm done.
Yeah.
You're in big trouble and you die. So she develops a program, and there's a fantastically famous photograph of her standing with the program, which is all, printed out computer paper, and it's taller than she is. And it is P00. It's power 00. Because P00, it looks like poo. They end up giving it the nickname Poodoo. So this computer program Poodoo.
Yeah.
Its entire function is to go focus on the most important thing and do not turn off. And it's kind of a revolution in computers. Wow. It's like if you get overloaded, drop everything. And so they assign tasks priorities. So fast forward, it's Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong screaming towards the surface of the moon in a little tiny tin can that we call the Eagle.
Yeah.
Right? Famously, the Eagle has landed. Well, it almost didn't. there are alarm bells going off. It's 2 minutes before impact upon the surface of the moon. Alarms start to go off. The computer starts to feel overloaded, and that's when Poodoo kicks in. And Buzz Aldrin had inadvertently, as he flipped on the radars to land on the surface of the moon, he also flicked on the radars to get back to the capsule, and the computer just could not handle both of those orders. And they found that out later, but because of Poodoo, they did not slam into the surface of the moon and die when the computer shut down. In fact, the Eagle did land. And this all has to do with Margaret Hamilton. She's going to go off and found several other software companies after this.
Oh, so after she basically saves the moon landing, she goes on and does amazing stuff as well.
She's like, I got other stuff I want to do now.
Yeah.
She goes off. She's still around, by the way. She's 89 years old, but she's here. And she, my favorite thing is she coins the term software engineer. She says, look, computer programmer is good and well and everything, but what I'm doing is a little bit more classy than that, shall we say. So software engineers.
Wow. Okay, one more story about women in astronomy. This history is more recent. Galileo probe of Jupiter in 1995, and there's a local woman who has a crucial role in this project.
Absolutely. Stephanie Wilson, one of my favorites. If you've never heard of her, and so many people haven't that it's shocking in this area. She is the second African-American woman to make it into outer space. And her story, I mean, look, she's born in Boston, so we got her. We can claim her all we want. She actually grows up in Pittsfield, so she moves when she's like 1 year old out there, comes back for Harvard, but finally ends up in Texas, of all places. And then she ends up at the JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And that's where she's working on systems with the Galileo space probe and Jupiter. And that's when she sort of becomes a specialist with instrumentation. The year that she graduates from UT with her degree in aerospace engineering is the same year that Mae Jemison is the first black woman into outer space, 1992.
Yeah.
And I assume that she was like, so you guys are hiring black women now? And she applies to NASA in 1996.
Wow.
She's accepted to the astronaut training program, 1998. She finishes it, and they're like, yep, you're cleared for space travel, and she gets to go on her first mission in 2006, which again makes her the second African-American woman ever in outer space. She does a bunch of stuff up there. Obviously, she helps install Leonardo. It's basically a suitcase that hangs on off the side of the ISS, but she's working robotic arms, and she becomes a specialist with these things. Either way, I always wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid. This is the dream.
Yeah.
But to actually get there requires you to be a genius and to be a straight edge and to be it's unbelievably meticulous.
Disciplined, committed, all of it, right?
That's it.
Incredibly special.
I cannot fathom what kind of discipline it takes. But she also manages, after years and years of being on the astronaut corps, to get herself onto the Artemis.
I was going to say, so not part of history, but Artemis was something that's happening right now. She's involved in this, right?
Absolutely. So are the Draper Labs, by the way, going back to Margaret Hamilton.
Yeah.
They are programming all of the computers for the Artemis program, which is why that giant Mars is hanging in their lobby.
Yeah.
But Stephanie Wilson has the potential to actually put a foot on the planet Mars, or might actually be the first person of color or woman to set foot on the moon, since she is part of that astronaut corps of Artemis.
Unbelievable stuff to really stop and think about. Wow.
I'm very jealous. Maybe she'll get to see some of this dark matter, floating around as well that you talked about with the previous guests.
Where do you go to find this stuff? Where do you find these? Dead serious. I mean, these are as you talk about. It's you're obviously looking at information. I mean, somebody who's in the history space, you're reading a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you find all of these things where you both times you've been here, it's like you're shocked and then I'm shocked. Why don't we know this more? Where are you finding this stuff, and how can we get this out in front of people more?
Absolutely. Sometimes it's a super random place. Like Stephanie Wilson, I discovered in Connecticut, in Windsor Locks, Connecticut, there is the New England Air Museum. And they had a great display on her and women in aerospace in general. And it's phenomenal. Other times, some rando will tell me about it. Oral history, you cannot deny that. But then there's always information if you go digging out there later, either on the internet or in archives or in libraries.
Yeah. Good stuff. Jared Bowen has joined us now. Speaking of, we're talking about astronauts and women in space. You have a regular, essentially, on your show who's an astronaut.
We do. First of all, Jamie, you didn't even flinch when I walked in. You're such a trained actor that he didn't even flinch. He just kept going. The world could be exploding around you, and you just kept your answer going.
Your
Very
presence
impressive.
is soothing, Jared. When you walk in, everything just feels better.
Katie Coleman has been a regular on our show since we started. started, and she has spent many, 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 many nights and days and months aboard the International Space Station. She is phenomenal. She's a musician. She's an inventor. She's all things. She's incredible.
Yeah, these people are. Astronauts are a special breed.
Yeah.
Well, what do you have on the show today, Jared?
We're going to be talking to Dr. Dhruv Khullar, who is a New Yorker writer and physician, writing about what he experienced in watching the Pitt on television, and he's actually taken it into his own practice, believe it or not. This is how good they are in doing their show, that there is a lot that he has observed, that he reflects on about what he experiences in a New York hospital, but also, again, what he now employs, which is pretty fascinating. Cristian Măcelaru is a conductor who is going to be in town with a new Wynton Marsalis cello concerto.
That's a tough one to say. Cello concerto is a tough one to say.
Daniel Berger-Jones would say it well.
Never.
He's doing that with Yo-Yo Ma and a bunch of young students with whom Wynton Marsalis worked to do this. And then we're talking to Maureen Abood about her new cookbook, Lebanese Baking.
Excellent. Sounds like a great show, which is coming at you in just a few short minutes. As for us, that's about it for us for today. Hey, keep in mind, we love to hear from you. Your questions are what fuel us here at the Curiosity Desk. Send us an email at curiositydesk@wgbh.org, or go to our website and fill out the handy-dandy form. Let us know what is capturing your curiosity. We might just look into it for you. The Curiosity Desk is produced by Aidan Connolly, Rachel Armani, Olivia Corcio, Hannah Loss, and Nicole Garcia. Patty Daniels is the moon in our night sky. Our engineer today is John the Claw Parker. Special thanks to David Goodman and Andrew Massawa for their audio engineering prowess. We will be right back here in 23 short hours on GBH 89.7 and streaming on YouTube. Until then, I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. You, stay curious out there.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Babson College, where students can learn to lead with impact and become a driving force for change. Babson's graduate virtual open house is on March 18th. Registration at babson.edu/gradopenhouse. How much do you know about the Beatles? Journey with Scott Fryman through the Beatles' milestone albums and the fascinating stories that accompanied them. Watch more Deconstructing the Beatles tonight at 7:30 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, the HBO drama The Pitt has earned accolades and fandom for its unflinching look at life inside the emergency department. New Yorker writer and physician Dhruv Khullar says the series captures the real pressures of modern medicine, not to mention the moments of humanity that still hold the system together. He joins us to talk about what the show gets right and how he's adapted some of the Pitt's practices while working hospital shifts of his own. Then renowned conductor Cristian Măcelaru is leading the world premiere of Wynton Marsalis' new cello concerto, a major new work written for Yo-Yo Ma and performed by young musicians alongside the Boston Symphony Orchestra. Măcelaru joins us to talk about bringing this collaboration to the stage and his thoughts on Timothée Chalamet's thoughtless comments on the arts. And our final course is a plethora of pastries by way of Maureen Abood, joining us to discuss her new cookbook, Lebanese Baking, a volume full of sweet and savory bites informed by her grandmother's cooking and her own life-changing travel to Lebanon. That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund. proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. Emergency rooms sit at the intersection of medicine and everything else. Insurance rules, staffing shortages, public health crises. On top of that are the everyday realities and histories patients bring through the door. The Emmy Award-winning HBO drama The Pitt captures that collision with unusual clarity, with its hyper-realistic portrait of the modern healthcare system and the doctors practicing within it. Case in point, in one episode, a patient arrives in the ER, his health failing because the high price of insulin has forced him to ration his doses. Then, when he learns what his hospital stay will cost, he flees. Fortunately, that doesn't deter his doctors.
My patient, he didn't have any insurance, and he was already in a mountain of medical debt. He couldn't afford any of his meds.
What's in the bag?
Insulin, test strips, electrolyte powder. I got him everything he needed for home care.
So Uber to his house.
Is the hospital going to pay for that?
I'll pay for it.
In a recent essay for The New Yorker titled What the Pitt Taught Me About Being a Doctor, physician and writer Dr. Dhruv Khullar writes that the show captures the raw reality of modern medicine, where moments of compassion and human connection unfold inside a system that often makes both harder to sustain. And watching it, he says, made him reflect on his own work as a doctor. Dr. Dhruv Khullar, welcome to The Culture Show. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here.
I can only imagine maybe your resistance at first to wanting to watch something and making yourself watch something like The Pitt. I think maybe we had similar experiences. I binge watched it over the holidays. I read in your New Yorker piece, you did too. What brought you to it, given your own practice and how it might be mirrored?
Well, as you said, I try to refrain from watching a lot of medical shows because I'm in the hospital all day, and what I want to do when I go home is really unwind and not be back in the hospital, so to speak. What was so powerful about this show, though, it made me reflect on my own practice in a way that I haven't had a chance to for a long time. And by that I mean, it showed so many aspects of the healthcare system and how dysfunctional it can be, the challenges that doctors and patients have when they're trying to engage in medical care, issues around documentation and insurance and prices and even some of the social and political challenges that we face in our country today. All those things kind of find their way into the emergency room. But what the show kind of drove home for me was that even in the midst of all that chaos and difficulty, there are always moments of grace to be found. There are always times and ways in which you can go the extra mile for a patient. And doing so, little by little, day after day, is what makes medicine special and what makes this practice redeemable.
I want to drill down in some of that, but in a general sense, how did you find the show once you get into it? At the end of the day, this is fiction. It's a show that it garners Emmy Awards as it does because there's great drama and a lot happens over the course of one shift. However, how close to reality did you find it?
I thought it was one of the most realistic medical shows I've seen, and that is both kind of the technical aspects of medicine that are being shown, things like the drugs and the doses and the procedures that are being performed, but also kind of the emotional aspects of medicine, what it feels like to practice medicine today. Over the past few years, I've written about all sorts of issues that make it challenging to practice medicine, whether it's crowding in the emergency room or global warming or discrimination or corporate influences in healthcare or artificial intelligence and how that's changing things. And somehow the show found a way to take those really complex themes and turn them into great television. I mean, it wasn't a heavy-handed way that it brought these things into the show, but it was done with subtlety and nuance and grace. And it makes for great watching, but also a real, I think, kind of education for people who aren't as familiar with what it's like to practice medicine today. Give them a sense of this is what people are going through when either they're trying to access medical care or when they're trying to deliver it.
One of the things that struck me, and I should mention for people who haven't seen it, it does play out, if you binge watch it, it plays out as one long shift. Of course, it unfolds weekly, as season 2 is right now as we speak. But what struck me is just the myriad issues doctors are facing, and it's not just what the patients are physically facing, it's those histories I referenced, the histories and conflicts that every single patient is bringing into the emergency department. How do you begin to work with that, not knowing what you could be met with at every turn, the difficulties at every turn?
Well, that's one of the difficulties of practicing medicine. And, the other thing that we have, at least in this country, is not a very strong social safety net. And so you see a lot of the impacts of people not having food or shelter or access to their medications. All those things end up in the emergency room because it's kind of the place of last resort. And so you see everything from, a CEO to someone who doesn't have housing in the same shift. And that is part of what's captured in the Pit. One of the things that I really reflected on when I was watching the show is it can feel like there's just too much going on to make any progress to make the system healthier. But one really good place to start is just having better staffing. Every problem that these characters face and every problem that real clinicians face could be eased to some degree by having more people, more professionals who are ready and able to care for the patients who are coming into the emergency room or coming into the hospital.
I want to play one more clip from the show, and it reflects exactly what you were just talking about. Here's a clip from season 1 of The Pit when Dr. Robbie clashes with the hospital's chief medical officer, Gloria, about inadequate staffing, which is causing backlogs in the emergency room department.
We risk our lives coming to work here every day. This is what happens when you keep all the hospital admissions stuck down here instead of properly staffing upstairs. I've got 4 patients waiting on ICU that have been here since before I got here, and it's already 1 o'clock.
I can see that
got 4 more waiting on psych. One of them's been here for a week. So please, for the love of God, hire more nurses.
I'll come back later.
That's not going to help anything. Same fucking thing every day.
You can sense his frustration there. This is also the reality of they're basically putting the hospital up for sale. They want to make it saleable to a corporation. With that corporate interference, how much is that changing how hospitals are functioning right now?
Well, consolidation and corporatization of healthcare is one of the dominant trends over the past 15 or 20 years. We've seen massive waves of acquisitions and mergers of hospitals and physician practices, and it is changing almost every aspect of the practice of medicine. Medicine feels much more like a business today, much more oriented around profit than it did in the past. And again, that feeling comes through in the Pit time and time again, that frustration that Dr. Robbie is expressing in that scene. It's a conversation that I could have had, with one of my own colleagues just yesterday.
The clip that we chose about the insulin and a patient not being able to afford this and the doctor stepping in and then Ubering the medication to this patient at their own expense, that's something you referenced in your New Yorker piece. You also talk about how caring for patients now comes at the expense, literally and otherwise, of doctors. How are you seeing that play out, and why are doctors keeping in it? We hear this about teachers, but now we know this about doctors too.
It's one of the beautiful parts of the show where you see time and again doctors and other clinicians are sacrificing in some way their own well-being to care for patients and make sure that those patients have what they need. And that type of thing happens in the real world all the time. And sometimes it comes at the expense of the mental health of clinicians, it comes at the expense of professional well-being and satisfaction. There are rising rates of burnout among many clinicians. There's growing rates of turnover, people leaving practice. And so, one of the things that drives home for me is this idea that in order to have a well-functioning system and to help care for patients, make them as healthy as possible, we also have to care for the clinicians that are delivering that medicine, because otherwise we're going to end up in a system where nobody is happy.
And how do you see this play out and how it's depicted in the Pit, how one shift will work its way through all of the physicians, the nursing staff, the PAs, everyone who is showing up to work and pretty exhausted at the end of the day, and we know they're not well compensated?
Yeah. I mean, again, that was just one shift, and a lot happens in that shift, probably more than happens in a real shift. But each of those scenes captures something really important about the practice of medicine. And again, it comes back to this idea of trying to go the extra mile for patients, even when the system is sometimes working against you doing what you think is right. And that tension can cause, burnout and moral injury, where again, the practice of medicine becomes much less satisfying at the end of the day.
I'm speaking with Dr. Dhruv Khullar, a physician at New York Presbyterian Hospital and contributing writer for The New Yorker. We're talking about his recent piece, What the Pit Taught Me About Being a Doctor. What do you make of the success that this show has had? And I look at it and I think, well, there are a lot of people watching this who can identify with this for myriad reasons. Unfortunately, health problems plague all of us, whether it's ourselves or our families. And is it your sense this show has touched a nerve?
Well, part of it has to do with just the artfulness of the show, the way that all these challenges and all the beautiful parts as well of medicine are depicted, and the kind of propulsive narrative and the storytelling. It's just a really well done show. But I think at a deeper level, it taps into something that a lot of people feel, whether you're a patient or a nurse or a doctor or a family member of someone who's struggling with a chronic disease or an acute illness. We've all had interactions with the healthcare system. And this is peeling back the curtain a little bit on why things often feel so frustrating, that there are all these factors behind actually that doctor-patient interaction that we all feel, whether it's economic or social or cultural or political, that are playing into that moment. And I think everyone can see a part of their own experience in this show.
Another thing that was a bit of a revelation for me, and I was reminded of it as I was seeing our YouTube stream right now, and we showed a still from one of the episodes in which one of the staff members in the emergency department is punched in the face. A woman is punched in the face by a patient who is just totally fed up with the fact that he's been sitting in the ER waiting room forever. How much violence is out there now? How much are you witnessing as you practice in the field?
Well, workplace violence is on the rise, sadly. I mean, this is something that has been building over the past many years where, clinicians, particularly those who are on the very front lines in the emergency room, are experiencing more and more violence. And sometimes that comes in the form of verbal violence or emotional violence, and sometimes, unfortunately, comes in the form of physical violence. And so, people are going to work in some cases fearing for their own physical safety. And so it's a huge and growing issue, I think, that one that we need to be taking seriously, making sure that emergency rooms and hospitals, clinics more generally, have the appropriate security measures in place, making sure that people feel safe when they're trying to deliver care. And again, it comes back to this idea that a lot of the frustrations of society more broadly end up in the emergency room. And when we have places that are so understaffed, where people are doing their best, but they just don't have enough people physically to care for people in a timely manner when they're coming into the hospital, that frustration can unfortunately sometimes bubble up in a way that it did in this show.
So what did it do to you when you finally bulked yourself up to watch this show, which you're watching by night, working by day? I think I have that in the right order as you wrote it in the New Yorker. What was it to marry the two and go back to work after what you were watching on television that night, the night before?
Well, it was kind of a surreal experience because I felt like I was almost watching myself at some points in the show. And a lot of the characters, are people that I feel like I might have worked with, whether it's a medical student or a nurse or a surgeon, people that I have known over the years. They're kind of depicted in a way in the show. And this was an incredibly intense period in the hospital. Over the holidays, we had one of the worst flu seasons that we've had in many years this year. So it was a really challenging time to be working and then coming home and watching the show for a number of hours. And it felt kind of strange. But again, it allowed me to kind of in a way, reflect on what was happening. And at times I kind of wanted to be like the people in the show. It reminded me that you could behave a different way, whether that was just joking around more with patients or leaving some of the formality that typically follows you around in the hospital. I experimented with not wearing my white coat and having patients call me by my first name, all these types of things. And it kind of just gave me this jolt of energy in a way to just think about how the practice of medicine, or my practice at least, had become in a way stale. And I wasn't experimenting. I wasn't trying new things with my patients. And what was most concerning to me is that it reminded me of, at times, the doctor that I used to be. I used to do things like bring patients a balloon on their birthday, or bring them takeout if they were in the hospital for weeks and hadn't had a meal that they really liked. And at some point during the pandemic, I kind of stopped doing that. And it kind of inspired me to return to that way of practicing medicine.
So the holidays were about 2.5 months ago. Is the Pitt still carrying through as you're making rounds?
It does. I mean, I think about it kind of all the time, and I've returned to some episodes in recent weeks as well, just to kind of brush up on that, and been watching and following along as more episodes are coming out. And so it's something that I continue to carry with me in all sorts of ways.
In your piece, you also confessed to not learning from the Pitt, but maybe gave you shades of how to do certain procedures a new way.
Yeah. I mean, that again speaks to the idea that they really went to great lengths to make sure that that what they were depicting on screen was technically accurate. That was down to the way that you would dose a medication, how often it would be safe to give it, let's say, how to go about doing a procedure that was technically very complex in the hospital, things that I might not have done since a medical school or residency even. So it kind of reminded me of some of those things, and something that I appreciate. Again, the technical aspects I think are important, but giving a accurate sense more generally of kind of the emotional and social aspects of practicing medicine, I think that's where it's almost like a public service announcement for people who are watching the show.
And in reading about the Pitt, I do understand that they have a team that's with them. There's a team of doctors, nurses, PAs that's with them in the writing process. There's another team that's with them in the shooting process when they're on set. If you had the opportunity to be part of either of those teams, what would you most encourage them to address going forward?
Well, I think one of the things that has been on my mind a lot, on the mind of a lot of doctors and patients, is just how technology is changing healthcare and how it will continue to. And I think that is coming through most clearly with artificial intelligence. And there are all sorts of issues around, should we trust the output of these models? How can they most safely and effectively be integrated? Do you want a machine to be telling you a serious diagnosis, or do you want that to come from a human doctor? How autonomous should these things be when it comes to medical care? How can they address some of the challenges actually that we've been talking about, notably workplace shortages or lack of access to medical care? And so there are both tremendous promises that this technology brings, but also a lot of perils. And I think that should be a central issue of anyone talking about healthcare going forward.
And I'll end there because you have also recently written about the use of artificial intelligence in the medical field. Where would you, because it's changing so fast, I mean, practically where tomorrow would be different from how you would answer today. But in this moment, how would you describe where we are with the use of AI and how helpful it can be?
Well, I think the models are getting better every day. Doctors are increasingly using them in their own clinical practice. From the perspective of patients, I often say, the best use of AI right now is to help guide you through the system, not away from the system. And so these models can be very helpful in, for instance, preparing for a doctor's visit or helping decode what you talked about in your last visit, asking questions about medical conditions that you or a loved one has. But where I get a little bit wary is when the models kind of try to overtake much of what clinicians or doctors are doing, in which case I don't think they're ready to be used in that way. But I think they can be tremendous navigators and guides for patients if they're used in the right way.
Well, Dr. Dhruv Khullar, thank you so much for being with us today and offering this very valuable perspective on this show. We appreciate it.
A pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Dr. Dhruv Khullar is a physician at New York Presbyterian Hospital and an associate professor at Cornell Medical College. He's also a contributing writer for The New Yorker. We were talking about his recent essay, What the Pitt Taught Me About Being a Doctor. You can find more of his writing at the New Yorker website. Coming up, Wynton Marsalis has a new cello concerto, a work written for Yo-Yo Ma and with a group of young musicians, and it's now debuting at Symphony Hall. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Make getting ready for the day the most productive part of your day.
From the GBH Newsroom in Boston, I'm Mark Hurst.
Get the local news you need to know. Traffic and transit updates. And weather with meteorologist Dave Epstein.
A gusty wind in the afternoon, partly cloudy.
When you're getting ready, get ready with us.
Time to round up the week with our incisive politics reporter, Adam Riley.
GBH's Morning Edition with Mark Hurst. Weekdays starting at 6 on GBH 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News app.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Chevalier Theatre, presenting Dancing with the Celts, coming to Medford on March 13th. The Celts combine the sound of Ireland and Nashville and are accompanied by Irish step dancers. Ticket info at chevaliertheatre.com. And Cambridge Savings Bank, where they are committed to your financial well-being, and community is at the core of everything they do. Cambridge Savings Bank, always you. More at cambridgesavings.com, member FDIC. And Boston College, with its year-long in-person fellowship, Boston College Companions. Accomplished professionals can reflect together, explore new directions, and consider the next step on their journey. More at bc.edu/nextchapter.
Don't miss a special edition of Stories from the Stage at our Brighton studios on March 20th. Hear bold stories that show the full extent of human ability in the most challenging situations. Tickets at gbh.org/events.
Benedetti, and recorded with the Philadelphia Orchestra under the baton of Cristian Măcelaru. Now Măcelaru and Pulitzer Prize-winning composer Wynton Marsalis are collaborating again. On Sunday at Symphony Hall, Măcelaru leads the Interlochen Arts Academy Orchestra in the world premiere of Marsalis' new work for cello and orchestra. It's a program that features Yo-Yo Ma, and that also includes music by Rina Esmail and Charles Ives. For Măcelaru, the Interlochen connection is personal. As a teenager from Romania, he came to the United States to study violin at the Academy, the same school whose students now join him on stage. Nearly 3 decades later, he arrives at Symphony Hall as both music director of the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra and as artistic director and principal conductor of Interlochen's World Youth Symphony Orchestra. Cristian Măcelaru, welcome to The Culture Show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Well, tell me about this piece, especially with the context that you have been collaborating with Wynton Marsalis for a very long time. So what's the latest fruits of your labor?
Yes, Wynton and I started collaborating actually when the violin concerto idea came, and I worked with him very closely, of course, recorded the piece then and performed it many times. But then we forged this incredible friendship as well, and I've collaborated with Wynton on many, many projects since. He wrote a concerto for orchestra for me. I've performed a lot of his other works that he has. And when the idea came to find a way to celebrate and to combine a celebration of America 250 and also kicking off the centennial anniversary of Interlochen's 100 years of existence, we decided to look at something that could really be, on the macro level, perhaps the greatest constellation and meeting of artists, which is why I asked Wynton to write a concerto and Yo-Yo Ma to perform it. And it's incredible that this is actually their first really significant collaboration, and of two of the greatest artists alive today, and all under the umbrella of Interlochen, who actually created both the possibility of this to exist, but as the people will experience in the concert hall, it's actually an unbelievably meaningful and poignant way of telling a story that has to do with where we've been, where we are today, and what is the hope for the future. And we, at Interlochen Arts Academy, of course, which is a private school that focuses on all the arts, we have engaged every single department in the school, from visual arts to dance to jazz to music to theater to film, to create their own contribution to this concert. And the concert is really, truly a multicultural, multi-artistic experience that, yes, it's true, it does have Yo-Yo Ma and the Wynton Marsalis at the core, but it's quite an incredible spectacle from beginning to the end.
Well, I'll go back to Interlochen right now. Of course, we plan to open this segment another collaboration because this is a premiere that is just getting underway. You've had a couple of other concerts at this point. How do you describe to people what they will be hearing, especially everything that you just described, looking at this country, looking at its history, all under the artistry of Wynton Marsalis, a Pulitzer Prize-winning composer, and his ability to process, especially our history as a country in music?
Well, Wynton's music is always infused with meaning and with references that are subtle, but at the same time are really important and really deep. And the concerto begins with the first movement. It's called Journey to Freedom. And actually the entire piece kind of has this underlying motive of a journey to freedom. And it's incredible to hear all the references in the music that he makes to the vernacular of the American culture. And I have spoken to him many, many times about this, and he is so focused and committed to telling the story through the American cultural vernacular. So you will find references to every single musical style and dance form in the folklore, from Appalachia all the way to New Orleans, and the jazz idioms as well. But there are all these hidden messages hidden in, for example, I'll give you just one example. Wynton, oftentimes in his music, you will hear the sound of the trains and the shuffling of the train and the train horns. And of course, for him, this represents the idea of freedom, because he says that, trains represent development and expansion and freedom. And at the same time, they represent, on a metaphysical level, the glory train, which represents an even greater understanding of the concept of freedom and liberty. And it's and just like this, the entire concerto, the 5 movements of the concerto, are filled with references that combine both the classical traditions and the classical culture that exists in America with the folklore and the homegrown culture that America is. So we have one of the movements that it's a combination between chorale, hymns, and spirituals. And he was explaining to the young students performing the piece, and to myself and Yo-Yo as well, what is the difference between a spiritual and a hymn and a chorale, and how they need to be interpreted in a different way, and what is behind that spiritual that makes it a spiritual, and not just music that it's stitched together. So it's an amazing journey of discovery, and at the same time, when you just listen to it, it's unbelievably joyful and positive. There are many moments of deep meditation and prayer-like moments as well. Of course, the blues, it's featured, but at the same time, overall, I would say it's incredibly optimistic and joyful.
I wonder what it's like. As I mentioned, you've performed this only a couple of times. Boston audiences will be among the first to ever hear this piece, of course. What is it to get it into halls and to hear the first performances, for you to be conducting those first performances? Has it changed in these last couple of weeks? How does it evolve?
Well, I think the thing that has changed the most is there are so many portions of the concerto that now have become earworms in my head that I just cannot get them out. But it's always I look forward to it every single time, because I see also the way that the students have started now identifying themselves with the piece. And one thing that people will not really know about this, but it's an inside view into the concerto. Earlier in the year, so last year, when we worked on the concerto, started working on it, we had a meeting with all the students and with Wynton. And Wynton asked them to tell him what do they want him to write in the concerto. So there were all these little requests. Can you put in a little tuba solo? Can you write this for the flute? Can you do that? And he has put all of that in. And it's unbelievable, really touching and unbelievable to see how there are these little signatures of the students that are premiering the concerto that will now live forever in this piece, because Wynton was so careful to pay attention and to really make the students feel heard and feel valued in what they do.
I'm speaking with Cristian Măcelaru, who is a music director of the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra and artistic director and principal conductor of Interlochen's World Youth Symphony Orchestra. We're talking about the premiere of his piece with Wynton Marsalis at Symphony Hall on Sunday. Well, this is even more poignant to talk about who these students are at Interlochen, which, if people don't know, as you mentioned, it's about to celebrate its 100th anniversary in this country of educating kids around the arts in Michigan, very prestigious institution. You were one of those kids, so you absolutely understand the meaning of an experience where they can not only collaborate with Wynton Marsalis, but then actually hear the outcome. How does this work to bring these students on stage and make them part of the process?
The energy that the students bring to everything they do, and the creativity and the commitment and passion, it's something that I experienced firsthand, of course, as a student myself. But now, as an adult, I look at both at that time and at the present time when I go back. And it's just overwhelming and encouraging, because in a world where we feel so much that things are going in directions that we cannot control, here are many youngsters, if I can call them this way, because some of them are 14 or 15 years old. I mean, they're really freshmen in high school and sophomore, and they come in with this attitude and belief that the world is ready to receive everything they give. And they have this energy that I remember myself having as well. And I take so much pleasure in being part of this energy. And at the same time, there is an incredible amount of creativity. I don't want to give too many things away because there are many surprises in this concert, but the concert begins with a song that was written by a singer-songwriter that is part of the singer-songwriter program at Interlochen. And this song, performed together with Yo-Yo Ma, is basically what launches this whole concert, which is Imagine Us, or Imagine US, depends which way you're looking at it. And the whole concert, the students were prompted to listen to the Charles Ives Symphony No. 4 at the very beginning, and then to write essays on their American experience and their understanding of the Ives, to be inspired by that. And there were 250 essays that we looked over at the essays, and then we picked the most poignant things that we wanted to tell in the story. And every single word that will be heard, every image that will be seen, every sound that will be created will be by the students. And this is an incredible blueprint of what an arts program can be when all the different areas of the arts are collaborating together, from visual arts to dance to musical theater to film to classical music to jazz. All of these areas are represented in this concert. And because Interlochen is all those things. And I really think we are better when we are able to represent all together.
Well, this makes me so eager to hear from you then about what Timothée Chalamet, the actor, just said. I don't know if you've heard these comments, but he just, in a conversation with Matthew McConaughey, I don't even know the context, but was basically asked about the classical arts, including classical music, including ballet, and said, I would have no interest in ever participating in any of those things because they're dying, so why would I? I just saw him deliver these comments for the first time this morning and saw how he also laughed it off. How do you answer that kind of sentiment coming from that actor of all things, somebody who is in the arts, as you see reflected in your own students' interests in what they're doing in these arts?
It actually makes me feel bad for him because there is such an enormous wealth of depth that he is not tapping into. And it's his loss more that he is not able to understand the depth of the arts. The value of the arts is not defined by Timothée Chalamet, you know, it doesn't have any relevance. His words actually have little relevance to me and to, I think, those that really appreciate and understand the value of the arts. It's actually a pity that he is not on a level emotionally to appreciate the arts fully. And I think anyone that has experienced the arts will look at his comments and literally brush them off as things that are said over and over again by many, many people. He happens to just be someone that people are paying attention to. But I've heard this commentary many times from people that don't understand what the arts are. And they are actually afraid of exposing themselves in a place, because in the face of art, you have to become vulnerable to really experience it fully. And if you're afraid to open up your vulnerability to be able to receive the depth and the beauty that the art can bring in your life, it's really a sad state of affairs. And I encourage everyone, in fact, I hope that his comments will actually get people more interested to see what is it that he's talking about, you know, because I really think the art is an individual journey. And every single person has their own perspective and their own understanding of how they relate to the art. And you know, it's a pity that he's not able to appreciate on a different level this area of the arts, because of course, as an actor, he is involved in the arts overall.
Well, that's what makes it so extraordinary, in my opinion. Extraordinary in a not great way, but extremely well put on your perspective. I hope that this brings so much attention to it. My final question for you is about your own experience and the life-changing difference that Interlochen made for you as a teenager from Romania. And as I understand, it was a bit of an accident, the way you ended up, how you ended up at Interlochen.
Yes, exactly. It's a story that I think many people that have heard me before will know. But when I applied to come to Interlochen, which has two very distinct programs, has the summer camp and then has the academy, the very prestigious academy. And when I applied for what I thought was the summer camp, it turns out I filled the wrong application. And then when I was faced with the news that I had received a full scholarship to attend the academy, my parents said, well, you have to try it. There's no coming back now. And it was really, truly a life-changing experience because it opened up this incredible world of possibilities. And as my daughter describes Interlochen now, she says, you know, it's a place where you meet your people. And it's a place where you go and artists tend life in a different way. They see life, maybe some people call it weird or crazy, but when you go to Interlochen, everyone is like that. And it's so wonderful to immediately feel accepted and adopted into this great family in which the world is a little strange, but it's a beautiful strange. And I have been part of that life and that world my entire life. And now to be able to help the students today make this world their own as well, it's really quite a privilege.
Well, your story is so inspiring, as is the story you now fulminate with these students who we'll see on stage at Symphony Hall on Sunday. Thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Cristian Măcelaru is music director of the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra and artistic director and principal conductor of Interlochen's World Youth Symphony Orchestra. He conducts the Interlochen Arts Academy Orchestra on Sunday at Symphony Hall in a program featuring the world premiere of Wynton Marsalis' new work for cello and orchestra with Yo-Yo Ma. The program also features, among the students, music by Rena Esmail and Charles Ives. Again, thank you. Esmail and Charles Ives. Again, thank you. Coming up in Maureen Abood's kitchen, baking means memory, ritual, and the taste of home. She joins us to talk about her new cookbook, Lebanese Baking. She's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
Nothing comforts the soul like Grandma's baking. That's why one cafe in Vienna is staffed entirely by grandmas, serving up their favorite family recipes.
It's a very lovely atmosphere, very heartful. It's a kitchen like at home, grandmother's home. It's like a children's feeling because they're real grandmothers.
Hear that story next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Safety Insurance, offering auto insurance policies designed to help for when the worst happens. You can ask an independent agent about safety insurance. Safety Insurance will help you manage life's storms. And the DeMoore McKim School of Business at Northeastern University, where graduate students can build vital business skills through experience. Business Bootcamp Series, April 13th through 17th. northeastern.edu/business bootcamp. And Boston Ballet, presenting Winter Experience, featuring the return of Crystal Pite's celebrated The Seasons, Canon, and Yorma Ello's timeless Le Sacre du Printemps, now through March 15th at Citizens Opera House. Tickets at bostonballet.org.
Find that Friday feeling early at GBH Music's Jazz Night, featuring mandolin player Ian Corey and cellist Catherine Bent. Tonight at 5:30 at the Boston Public Library. Get a free ticket at wgbh.org/events.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show, live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. For Maureen Abood, baking is more than technique. It's a way of carrying culture, memory, and family traditions forward. In her new cookbook, Lebanese Baking, she gathers the breads, pastries, and sweets that fill Lebanese kitchens with gorgeous aromas. From maniquiche and savory pies to delicate cookies scented with rosewater and orange blossom. A champion of Lebanese cooking, her first cookbook, Rosewater and Orange Blossoms, introduced many home cooks to the flavors of the Lebanese pantry and garden. Now, with Lebanese Baking, she turns to the ovens and bakeries that anchor daily life across Lebanon. You can catch her tonight at 6 for a tasting and book signing event at Sofra Bakery and Cafe in Allston. Maureen Abood, welcome to The Culture Show. It's great to have you here. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be in Boston.
Well, Boston is happy to have you. Normally it's great weather, but you'll fill us with great food to get us through these couple cold days.
That's right. That's one of the reasons we love to bake is we get cozy. we go inward. Those are all good things.
Well, you've gone inward in thinking about, well, for starters, your grandmother and what she taught you from a very young age about baking.
You know, I'm so blessed to have had these experiences in the kitchen with family members like my sitto, both my grandmothers, because I still draw on them today. And as a child, it was just the most magical time for me to be able to go in, watch, get my hands into it. They really encouraged the children, and I think I always say I was the favorite. My siblings will disagree. But, they encouraged me to participate. And I think that's not always the case, because I do hear some people saying, and even my own mother mentioned this about some family members, that they didn't want the kids involved because they didn't want them to mess things up. It took more time to teach. And that's exactly what my grandmother did.
So how have you crafted this cookbook so you grew up here in the United States, family members who didn't grow up in the United States, Lebanese American. How did you lean back into the Lebanese part?
I really grew up in a family culture that was both Lebanese and American. Lebanese American, second generation. We clung to so many things about being Lebanese. It was just a natural, food being the main thing, I would say, the main thing. And I always loved everything about food journalism. My mother got a lot of cookbooks and magazines, and I thought, wouldn't it be neat to see Lebanese cuisine here? our gourmet magazine that we would receive. And so it spurred me on to want to be the one to get that done, make that magic for other people as well. But I was steeped in it, really.
And so as you began crafting your recipes, especially for this book, you were able to mine your own family recipes. In fact, you have a great photograph in here of all the handwritten recipes, just a collage of handwritten recipes that you collected. And are you replicating these recipes, or how have you put your own spin on them?
Isn't that special? One of the first things I did when I started writing the book was reach out to my cousins and other Lebanese to say, do you have handwritten recipes from your elders, and these would be all of my aunts in general. And what came in was so exciting. We don't see handwritten recipes so much anymore. So, and losing that generation, huge inspiration for me, because here I'm seeing these handwritten notes, and I'm really connecting to the people I miss and love so much. And I utilized that as a part of the research, and certainly all of the many Lebanese cookbooks on my shelf, to go back into this old world, the church cookbooks, the things that really include this array. But then that was just the beginning, because what I wanted to do, and what I do with all of my work, is to refine these recipes so that they're doable, and so that you can have the detail you need, not too much detail that it becomes, you get mired down in it, but enough to be able to trust. Let me take you on this journey so that you can bake and trust that it's going to work, and it will, and be an enjoyable experience.
I think that for people who didn't grow up with Lebanese food but who love it, especially, well, you'll correct my pronunciation. So baklava is something that we know, but that's the Greek. So take us through something, the Lebanese version of that, which could be very intimidating to people, but you break down here.
The bitlewa, or baklava, a little bit different spelling and pronunciation in Arabic, is such a centerpiece for us with all the celebrations. And certainly if you go into a Middle Eastern bakery, you're going to find this. And it is actually something you can make at home and enjoy making at home. I ended up including phyllo recipes, phyllo dough recipes. Now, that's not something you need to do. I did this because I thought it was important to understand how this dough is made, and how my grandmother and those before her had to do that in order to make their bitlewa. And I used to think, oh gosh, what a burden. These poor ladies, they just, no. When I did it, I respected their finesse and their mastery so much. They were incredible. But what I then do, and there's a whole chapter on the bitlewa, is show you not just how to make the different shapes and the different fillings, and they are so wonderful, drenched in the flour water syrup, which is so aromatic, but to give you ways to make them where you don't necessarily have to butter every layer of phyllo, but giving you ways to revive phyllo if it gets dry. My Aunt Rita had this way of assembling her bundle of phyllo and nuts in a really quick way, and I've been doing that for years, and it becomes a thing where you can say, I'm going to make a batch of bitlewa, and I'm going to do that today, and it's not such a big deal, and enjoy it so much.
Is it so you can tell people that they don't have to be intimidated, especially the way you walk it through?
Exactly.
That, like anything, you have to adapt, you have to get your comfort zone, and you have to learn, but it's not so intimidating.
It's not. When you take a minute, and baking does this for us, to sit down and take yourself out of the busyness of life and read through the recipe, make sure you have the ingredients, and do what I'm hoping you'll do, which is you can make these component parts in advance. I bring my giant bag of nuts home from Costco and I toast them. Put them back in the bag and in the freezer. Or I pulverize them and put the sugar with them, and there's my filling. I don't need to make filling the day I'm making bitlewa. I clarify my butter and put it in the fridge. I make my flour water syrup. And you can do these things anytime. And they're small little projects. Then you have your components ready to go. And all you really have to remember to do is take your phyllo dough out of the freezer the night before and put it in the fridge.
That's a pretty key thing.
Yes. I've tried it. I've tried,
Ouch.
sneaking that through, and it wasn't pretty.
I love that you also have pieces in your book that date back to the 10th century. That must be pretty profound to you to be being part of this tradition, carrying this forward, sharing it with the global community.
It's amazing when we think about the history of Lebanese cuisine and its influences throughout the Middle East and then beyond, as the diaspora has grown so nicely, really. And it is wonderful that these are authentic traditions that we want to keep alive. And I really am hopeful that the next generations will take the book and go beyond that too, but make the recipes. And then sprinkled in there are what I consider my own innovations that I love to do. I absolutely love taking the flavors and the textures and doing something new, but not without the basis of this ancient tradition.
What's one of your favorites of the new that you introduce us to in your book?
There's a very simple snack cake. It's a cardamom Arabic coffee snack cake. And this thing couldn't be easier. It's a little 8x8 pan, or maybe it's 9x9 pan, one bowl, deep dark chocolate cake with a swath of coffee buttercream very simple buttercream on top. You start putting your fork into this, and when we were developing and testing the recipe, a cousin of mine works with me, we just kept saying, this cake is a devil. We can't stay away. It's just like pulls us in. It's very good and very simple.
I'm speaking with Maureen Abood about her new cookbook, Lebanese Baking. And tonight at 6, you can see her in person for a tasting and book signing event at Sofra Bakery and Cafe in Alston. I understand that your own travels to Lebanon also informed this career path, that it was almost life-changing for you.
Very much so. I longed for my whole life to go to Lebanon. But in our world, the way that it was not something that my parents, who were also born in this country, were doing. They were not necessarily taking us over. It was, in times of civil war, and it was not easy to go there, at least from their perspective. So when we did finally go, my mother, my sister, and I went together. I was overwhelmed in many ways with all that I saw and tasted and absorbed from that trip, not the least of which was meeting family that I had never met before. And these are cousins. These are family members living in the home where my grandfather was born, here's the room where he was born. I feel so fortunate to have had that experience. And, when they came out in the village to meet us, we'd pulled up, they came out of the house, and the oldest woman in the family comes out, and what does she have but a plate of cookies in her hand? That's her welcome. Always a part of it. Let me give you something.
Which is very interesting because I think either in the book or maybe something else I saw with you, you point out that sweets are something that are put on the table on a regular basis. Of course, in this country, we love our sweets many of us love our sweets all the time. But so there's a kind of different culture there.
Yes, it's more of a celebratory culture around sweets. On a day-to-day basis, it's fruit. It's dried fruit and nuts.
Which is so amazing there.
It's so amazing.
I've been to Jordan, but not Lebanon.
Oh, you have? Okay, you have a feel for this. The fruit is beautiful and wonderful, and it's kind of a throwback for us to think about an orange being a big deal, because that's kind of like a grandparent thing to say, we had an orange for Christmas. But it really is a wonderful Mediterranean healthy lifestyle that is a natural. We're eating our fruit and our nuts and we're enjoying that. And then when we celebrate, we have a cookie. We have the bitlewa. I mean, the wedding feasts would not be the same without the aunts making the bitlewa platters and the cookies, and these are celebration. And I do like it that way, although, like you, I have a huge sweet tooth and bread tooth.
Well, and that's how it began for you, right? You started with breads before going on to the desserts, and we haven't even gotten to the savory part.
That's right. That's right. We were baking breads, watching the elders make the breads, and these were dazzling, truly dazzling. And I always wanted to learn how to do this. You know, the throwing of the flatbreads is a real art. But what I wanted to do was master it and then be able to say, you can do this too, but you don't have to learn to throw it to be able to make it. Let's come up with a way. Make the bread a little smaller, roll it very thin, and you can do it on a baking steel in your oven instead of a domed Sage oven, which I have many of those, but not everyone does. So that was a really a good starting point for me, was to look at this bread and all the breads and say, okay, how can we bring them into the home kitchen?
And we just have about a minute left, but I want to ask about the savory part, because a big portion of the book is devoted to savory too. So you give us that full taste of Lebanese baking.
That's right. The breads are a very special part of how we eat. I mean, right down to the pita chips that we include in our fattoush salad. You can make those, and they're so much better. They're really, really good, homemade, and those are in the book. And our breakfast breads, the flat manish that have the za'atar oil on top, and these are really a special part of savory eating. We can use the bread instead of a fork, and it's not, you know, you might think carb load. It's not. It's balanced. It's very balanced.
Well, just like the baking itself, I think we can relax a little bit when we're eating, and just everything in moderation, of course,
true.
in balance, as you say. Thank you so much. Congratulations on the book. I didn't even get to ask you about the photography, which I think it's some of the most gorgeous photography I have ever seen in a cookbook. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Maureen Abood's new cookbook is Lebanese Baking. You can catch her tonight at 6 for a tasting and book signing event at Sofra Bakery and Cafe in Allston. Thank you again. And thank you for listening to another edition of The Culture Show. Tune in tomorrow or join us live for our Arts and Culture Week in Review. It's Oscar weekend, and we'll have a preview, which may or may not include some bashing of Best Actor nominee and now notorious opera and ballet basher Timothée Chalamet, plus the dismissal of the BSO's maestro Andres Nelsons, and The Bear says bye-bye. The Culture Show crew is Max Chow-Gillette, Kate Dellis, and Chelsea Mers. Our engineer is Bill Piacatelli. If you ever miss us on the radio, check out the Culture Show podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
GBH's All Things Considered is coming up this afternoon at 4, with Marketplace at 6:30. But first, get a global view of the news with The World. Up next, here on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Innuendo in Natick, presenting Hunter Douglas Duet Architella PowerView shades for your home and office. Hunter Douglas PowerView automation, measured and installed by their technicians at Innuendo and innuendo.com. In this German-language drama, investigators must get to the bottom of complex murders in the heights of the beautiful but treacherous Austrian Alps. Watch Murder in the Mountains tonight at 10 on GBH 44.
1 month after Afghan composer Arsen Fahim began studying at the New England Conservatory, the Taliban retook power and banned music. I'm Arun Roth. Today on GBH's All Things Considered, Fahim joins me to talk about this weekend's concert featuring music by Afghan composers who remain anonymous because they could face death for writing the music being performed here. That and all the day's news starting at